Hello and welcome to this thing. I'm just gonna cut the crap. This is an experiment where every single night I'm gonna say an affirmation that I will remember my entire dream, and then I will write it down as soon as I wake up, even if I wake up at like 2 a.m. or something, and then I'm gonna see how that memory kind of changes the way that the dreams work over time to see if anything spooky happens. I've done this before and I don't believe in like spooky dooky nonsense that's gonna come and get me. So it's more just like seeing what consistency happens in my head when I remember all of my dreams. And maybe it sounds interesting to you.
Is this supposed to make me not want to kill myself?
There's no real reason to add fluff to anything. It's not like those recipe blogs where you have to scroll for like 700 years just to get to the recipe because the guy has to go on about how he has a childhood fear of the carrot man or something. First, I'm going to talk about the history, like how I did it last time and what the process was like. Then I'm going to talk about weird stuff, if there's any concerns that certain people who are superstitious have and that kind of thing. And then I'm going to read all of the interesting entries from the last time that I did this, which is why the video is so long. So if that sounds interesting to you, then cool. If not, you probably already clicked off whatever.
Why do I come to the arena?
So back in like 2022, I had been just on and off recording my dreams here and there, and then I decided what would happen if I just consistently tried to do it. The problem is that routines and schedules and that kind of thing can get really stressful for me. I'm not autistic, which might be a surprise to some of you, but I do have ADHD, so it's kind of a problem sometimes. So it's like on and off, semi-consistent. My basic plan for this is once I get all of these dreams read out and I start fresh, I can make updates like every month. These are the dreams that I remembered this month or something. And then even if I don't do it every single night, there's still quite a lot of them, and I think that would be interesting. I also have a website that has stuff for like art commissions. I used to do them and then I couldn't because I didn't have time, and you can see all that stuff on there. It's on NeoCities, and you can also read the entries from those dreams. The thing is, I write them as soon as I wake up, so even if I'm like half asleep and I make a bunch of spelling errors, I keep them that way for the purpose of authentic recording. So there's going to be a lot of entries when you read them that's just not gonna make that much sense, and if it doesn't make sense to you, then it doesn't make sense to me either. Yes, I do love LSD Dream Emulator and Yume Nikki fan games. How did you know? Basically, I thought it would be cool if my brain like reinforced what was happening in the dreams by writing them down, and then they came up in other dreams, which is actually what happened. The last time I did this, I remember that there was a specific like non-Euclidean mall that was connected to a hotel, and that showed up. I wrote extensively about it because I remembered the layout and that kind of thing. It showed up again. So at one point, when I get to the reading part, I'll go into detail about this, but there was this one point where the dream I had was me as a kid going to the hotel and like having to escape this weird thing that was trying to get me lost in the mall part or something. And then I knew that I wasn't supposed to go in there, and a bunch of kids had gone missing or something. And then I remember, I think either a couple months later or even a year later, I had a dream with the same mall, and it was the same layout, which I remembered. And this time, I was my actual age as an adult. I was trying to prevent kids from getting lost in that mall. And then I was thinking, wow, I hope that a bunch of kids didn't get stuck in the hotel, because I remembered that part and my dream self remembered it, even though I was my age instead of a kid. I got inspired by this because when I was in high school, a good friend of mine told me this. When she was a little kid, she had a nightmare where she was in this village. Think like that one village from Brothers Grimm, that movie. And there was a frog that would come out of the well every single year, and it would steal someone's voice in the village, and it was like some ritual or something. And she remembered that it didn't steal her voice. And then the time that I knew her, which I think was like a decade after the dream had originally happened, she told me she had the exact same dream, but the frog took her voice this time. And I thought that was really spooky, so I always remembered it. So the thing about the common themes that you'll see when I get to the dreams is I'm a pretty big horror fan and I have bad depression. So I guess that's why my dreams are usually on the darker side, but I don't count them as nightmares. I don't think that I have nightmares very often. The specific thing for me is not the theme, but how I feel when I wake up. So if the dream is really messed up, then I guess you could count that as a nightmare, but I usually just wake up not really caring about that or thinking it was interesting, so I don't count them as nightmares. The times that I actually woke up feeling scared are very few, so I would count those as nightmares, and they don't happen very often despite the subject matter. Some of the stuff I consume is like I try to read a bit every day, so I'll read some stupid horror book, or I'll watch like a horror video. When I'm going to class or something, I'll have that horror video, some sort of horror content on. I guess that just comes up sometimes. I'm only making this video now, but at the start of October, I started to record some new dreams, and I noticed that I didn't really have time to read a lot of horror books because I was doing other stuff. So the dreams are still kind of dark, but they're not as dark this time. I did notice that when I did this last time, the dreams were definitely getting a bit darker gradually as they went along, but then sometimes they were just really silly because they're dreams. I like to write, and I don't really finish a lot of stuff that I write, but it's a good inspiration as well. So a lot of these do sound like story ideas, and eventually I want to make them into something. I do actually have like a collection that I made, and it's been ages. But when I have time, eventually I want to make another one. So it's on my personal website if you want to look at it. I am intending to at least update every month. Even if I can't make a video, I'll update my dream recordings so you can still read them or something. But like I said, ADHD bad. So I don't know. I'll say one thing and then when I started this process, like I said, I'm a fan of LSD Dreaming Emulator and stuff like that, but I specifically am not looking and did not look at any dream journals of the same kind of variety besides being a fan of those things. I was a fan of those things for ages beforehand, and then I specifically did not look at any of them again when I started doing the dream recording because I didn't want their dreams to influence my recordings. I'm trying to keep this semi-authentic. Whatever other project there is of someone recording their dreams, I am not going to look at that until I decide to stop doing this, just to keep everything authentic.
They turned me down, now I live my nightmare.
So I want to talk about superstitious stuff and also the characteristics of my sleep that might be interesting. On one hand, if you're a superstitious person, then maybe this will make you feel better if you're freaking out about the demons that'll come get me in my sleep. And if you're not, maybe you just think it's psychologically interesting. I'm a light sleeper. I wouldn't call myself an insomniac, but I definitely take a while to fall asleep. I definitely do the thing where like I put the blue light filter on my phone and I try not to look at it too much before sleeping and all that stuff, but it still takes me a bit of a while. Sometimes when the ADHD stuff or I'm just really bad or I'm like really stressed, then I'll put on a little bit of background noise playing on my phone, but otherwise it's just, it is what it is. The way my routine usually goes at night, I'll do some reading and then I will pray, and then sometimes I'll fall asleep while doing that, and then other times I'm just kind of lying there. So there's that. When I was younger, I did have some sleep paralysis. It was also a stress driven thing. I haven't had it for a long time. Most of the time, it was just like maybe in the morning, I would be half asleep and thinking that I woke up super, super late and I couldn't get out of bed and I was missing everything. And it's like, you're wasting the day, you'll never amount to anything because you're not being productive all the time, kind of thing. And then I would actually wake up and it would be like 7 in the morning and it was fine. That was like 99% of the sleep paralysis. And this one time, I had a really weird one where I was looking up and then it looked like a giant demon hand had picked up the roof and then dragged it really high and then dropped it. So I was watching it fall down towards the house with the implication that it was going to crush me to death. And then I just woke up and I felt kind of sick. And then that was that. And that happened maybe like 15 years ago. So nothing like that has happened since. Also, when my anxiety was really bad when I was a teenager and also when I was like a little younger than that, I would have these really bad anxiety attacks or panic attacks at night that would span like 8 hours. It was pretty bad, so that kind of influenced some of my dreams at that point, but I wasn't recording them at that time. You know that kind of deep anxiety attack you get where it feels like you have to breathe manually, although otherwise you'll suffocate to death? For people who don't have them, it sounds totally insane, but it's kind of normal for that kind of thing. It's like that doomed feeling you get, and then there would be certain noises, like if cars would go by, for some reason, my brain would fixate on the cars as like some sort of harbinger of doom every time that they would go by, and it was just nonstop, like waves of anxiety. That kind of thing has happened that has stopped my sleep before, but it doesn't happen when I do the routine of remembering my dreams. So it's not an agitator, it's just something that maybe every now and again might affect something, even though it hasn't in a while. So, light sleeper, bit of anxiety and stuff, overactive imagination, ADHD, that's the kind of dream thing that we're dealing with. So, if you see that sort of thing pop up, maybe it'll be interesting to you, any of you psychology students or something. At university, I did like 1 year of psychology, and then I figured out I was too dumb to do the next year, so I stopped. But second thing, I understand that some people are very superstitious. I think that there's a big difference between being superstitious and being spiritual. I'm spiritual, I'm not really superstitious. So I don't think that anything bad's gonna happen because it didn't happen last time, and I'm pretty well versed in not being stupid as much. Like, I'm not about to go and read the Lesser Key of Solomon and start doing all the stuff in there to be edgy or something like that. You know what I mean? I do have plot armor if you're scared about that. Don't worry, I'll be fine. I know that people who don't believe in any of that stuff will probably think it's silly to say, but people usually have that kind of fear, and it's nice just to say that anyway, just to sort of double check, just to put you at ease a bit. I like horror content, but I also like delivering it in a kind of comfy way that makes people feel a bit at ease. Well, I know that sounds kind of like a pussy thing to do, but you know what I mean, right? I'll be okay. There's nothing supernatural going on with me recording my dreams.
The human holding on to it is worthless. And
So the process, just to go over that again, is when I go to bed after I finish my routine, I'm going to just remind myself in my head, I'm going to remember my dream. Saying that really helps me as like an affirmation, just to make my brain make sure that I still retain the memory when I wake up. I don't know how that works exactly, but it does. So I'm going to do that, and then immediately after waking up, I'm going to write down as much of my dream as I remember, including however half asleep I am at the time. If there's spelling errors, if it doesn't make sense, that's just the way that it is, and I'm going to leave it as is, unless if I'm fully awake and I still remember stuff from my dream, I'm going to add to it, but I'm going to keep that original nonsensical bit in there authentically because that's what I recorded originally. And then every month, I'm going to gather up all of these dreams and I'm going to present them as a record of how it goes, and then hopefully it'll be like a cool timeline to see how it progresses and what familiar locations or characters show up, especially if I don't know them in real life and they're just people that my brain made up. If they show up again, that'll be really interesting. And also how much the media that I consume affects the dreams that I have, especially as a horror fan, and especially as someone who has like a touch of the mental illness.
Probably working with all those filthy.
So let's go into the dreams starting 2nd of January 2019. Another thing that I do is I write titles when I keep these. I use this app called Novelist where you can make like different books and then arrange them with like chapters and that kind of thing. So I've just been doing that through a book, and then I have a new book that I've started for this year's attempt, and it just makes things a bit neater, but I have a backup of it as well so I don't lose it. So 2nd January, Dinner on a Cliff Mansion. If these titles don't really make sense sometimes, I also put the title in as soon as I wake up. So sometimes I'll title these things and it has nothing to do with the actual dream because I'm half asleep and I don't know what's happening. But this one makes sense. I was a teenager, but I was like 14 or 15. I wasn't in the high school that I actually went to, but I was in some older looking school. There was a lot of tilted ground, as if the school was built on an angle on a bunch of cliffs. I went home and found an invitation to a grand dinner at a house or a mansion on the biggest cliff, like way up high. And I was like, okay, this is cool. This is like a big deal. But there's a lot of kids missing in the area. And I'm suspicious about this person, whoever they may be, because nobody knows who actually lives there, but they invite people to dinner. So I end up going because I want to figure out who it is. And I show up and go to the weird house. It's like a massive, twisting, colorful, fancy mansion. There's a massive dinner table with like 50 seats, 25 on each side. There's a lot of weird magic food to be served. I got through a few and they were all nice, but kept having a weird feeling with each section of food. After each section, we were allowed to get up for a breather and explore or go for a walk as part of the dinner, and I ended up talking to some of the other kids who were suspicious, and they said that they wanted to find a way to find the secrets. I think we were walking past the front door at one point, and it wasn't there anymore, and none of the other kids noticed, so the suspicious kids only noticed the suspicious things. Unfortunately, I can't remember what the secret was, but I think it was implied that the kids were wandering around the mansion forever if they couldn't see the door, and they fell under the spell of the food, and the weird Willy Wonka dude was feeding off of their essence because he was the house or something. And that's all there is there. 7th of January 2019, imprints of people. In the dream, I could see imprints of where people had gone before, like I was tracking a missing boy and I had a feeling that he died somewhere, like a murder case. He was walking along the outskirts of some wheat field and he went down to a valley and there was someone else, but I couldn't see them. It was like in slow motion and they looked like a faded photograph, and everything was really overly saturated. That's a common theme in some of my dreams where it will be overly saturated in the dream, like everything will be so colorful it's almost disturbing. I know that sounds weird because in a lot of horror movies things are very dull and blue and serious because it makes them look more gloomy, but I actually got a lot more disturbed by the dreams when I woke up, when I remembered that the colors were so bright that I was almost like overstimulated by how fake cartoony and bright everything looked, like if you put the saturation way up in Photoshop or something. That's what freaked me out more. And I think when my dreams made me feel more uncomfortable, or maybe when I went to sleep in a more uncomfortable frame of mind because of stuff that was happening in my life or just like mental illness in general, the colors in the dream would be way brighter than they should be. 8th of January 2019, big island with snails. I was in some academy and ran out because there was a fire, and then I went on the bus with my dad and there was smoke, and we suddenly ended up in this weird series of hills and mountains and lakes with these big snails, like almost human size, and other big things. But they ignored us and the others on the bus. I think we were trying to figure out how we got there and what the mist was. I don't know what that means. Honestly, everything in the dream was bizarre because the academy had a huge outdoor spiral slide as the way to get down from the upper floors, and the rest of the buildings were on stilts. In my head, I'm remembering some of it. I think it looked like, those weird buildings that were in the trees and the cliffs from the Time Machine movie. I think that's what I was getting at. 12th January, the Demon Study Zen Village. That was a series of words. Mum and I were arguing about a spider on a hairbrush in the bathroom. Then Dad's TV got fucked up somehow and he went into my room and started trying to understand what ad block was as he was watching on my laptop. Then me and some people went to this village where you can go, and the whole village is zen and quiet like a library, but it's the entire town meant for studying. It also looked like some people had been living there for a while. There were also these stilt canopies in the distance. That's a repetition. I never got close to those. We went to the good spot down in some lower section to sit behind a couch for some reason, and there were some other shithead guys there. So we left them alone, and there was one dude who looked really awkward in their group. So I had an anime-style flashback of him as a kid being friends with people even though he didn't like them because he just wanted someone to understand him. He was afraid of being alone, and he seemed fed up, so I got angry about this and started doing this big lecture to come with us instead because his friends suck and I knew what it was like to feel like I wasn't going to belong anywhere or something. Then it became the evening, and I was saying that we should go because the village has a creepy feeling at night. But the others were like, "You are always like this, we know, time to go when it gets dark," and we left. I also didn't know these people in real life, they were just random dream people. Then I woke up for a bit and I had a second dream. I was in a resort with dream friends. I don't know them in real life, but they were also different from the ones from the first one. Then, for some reason, Polnareff and Avdol from Stardust Crusaders were there. We settled into our rooms, but it was supposed to be an ordinary trip, and then a little kid in the next cabin started following nothing at night, so it must have been a ghost. He was just walking along the resort as if he was following someone I couldn't see, and I wanted to talk to him because I couldn't sleep, so at one point I followed him to see what was happening. I noted he avoided a plaza section that was shaped hexagonal and had 6 decorative poles along the sides. Once again, stilt canopies in the distance, but I never went up those. Then we ended up meeting the kid and realizing a demon is following us. Like it wants to eat the souls of the guests, and it attacks one of my friends but misses, so the friend is unconscious but their soul is barely tethered to them and it's out and about following us. We know because they can temporarily turn into a bird to talk to us, and it takes too much effort so they only do it sparingly. We run from the demon a lot. The dude from the dream before that I gave a lecture to is there too, and he helps us hide only once. There's a live esports game going on in a massive arena next to the hotel, so we hide in the crowd and our ghost friend keeps an eye out for the demon. There's some weird plan I don't understand where we find the background of the 6 founders of the resort and we dress up as them and lure the ghost to the 6 pillars and surround it. And then my dream skips the exciting bits and goes to the next day where everything is fine and we have a lot of nice food, so I missed what happened. And then I woke up. 13th January 2019. This one is called Pistachio Suit. There was a hitman or hitwoman out for someone. I couldn't tell the gender. And there was someone that looked like a man in a fishing hat, kind of like the Australian one with the little corks on them, the fly hats, but I couldn't see his face. I didn't know the gender of the hit person, but they had long blonde hair. They would clash on rooftops and public transport, and finally they got to the inside of an old train, and the dude is in some black spy suit. I'm assuming that this is the man in the fishing hat. Then they have swords for some reason, and the hit person is slower and ends up losing. The hit person is like, "Why did I lose? I made this suit myself." And the fishing hat man puts his hand on the suit and says, "This is a great suit, but the fatal flaw is that you made it out of pistachios, so the movement is wrong. You are someone who has grown up in the luxurious clothing and never considered the true nature of making a suit. Mine may look cheap, but this is the thing that keeps me alive." And then there's a cut to 1 year later where this fish hat man has to save a child, and then they go on the same train and go underneath the train and run out to go shopping. What happened there? 14th January 2019. Bed sheets. I vaguely remember this, but I was someone who was staying in this dark house and the lights were off because it was eternal nights. And there was some guy who came into the house to see if there was anyone who wasn't supposed to be there, and I was hiding in the bedsheet beside someone to not be caught. I don't know why I wasn't supposed to be there, but I got the impression that I was someone who would have either been culled or shunned or exiled by the person checking the dormitory, and I knew that it was bad. And then I woke up. 15th of January 2019. Deaf people. There was a club where people were hanging out. A random big room with games and a cushion and a kitchen. Then one of them was like secretly not real and dissolved into what my brain registered as evil smoke. And we had to chase it across the street. There was also a bunch of mandrakes, and everyone who wasn't deaf died, and the deaf ones were the ones left. And that didn't. Alright. 16th January 2019. The Run. I was going to go for a run for some sightseeing objective, and beforehand a person in the group handed me a letter. I went on the run and we ran in 3 groups. First one had a trippy floor, so you didn't know where the gaps in the canyon were and you had to jump across them. At one point we got into a car. One part of the run was underwater, and one we were being chased by something we couldn't see. At one point the rain was following us and we couldn't let it get us for some reason. The last was a cave, and the big race was terrifying because there was a blue storm that made me feel vertigo when I looked up at it. Then our characters turned into Dragon Quests, and we made a sunny farm. Then we were inside, and the person got mad at me for not actually mailing the letter that they gave me, as she got attacked by the other contestants in the run who came after us because they were brainwashed. I got to start the race again, and we saw the girl just standing there with a blank expression, and we had a conversation that implied that she was on some other plane of existence and couldn't see us anymore. Then I had a second dream where I was in a swimming contest on an island across the water, so I went with my group and we started. I was last in the relay, but since I got there, my nose had been terrible and my vision was funny. So when I got in, I had to get out because my nose started bleeding and I got dizzy, so my friend took me back. For some reason, the captain of the other team started screaming at me, so I screamed back, telling her to shut up, and she got really scared. Then we went onto this giant floating ferry over the water, with the other people waiting there, and then I woke up. 17th of January 2019. This one's called Josuke, like from JoJo. I think you can tell what I'm a fan of. This person had some weird ability, something to do with fixing people like Josuke, and they wanted to be a nurse, but we were in school in this dream and everyone made fun of them because they didn't believe the power was real. I was the person's friend and I got really mad and I don't remember anything else. 21st of January 2019. Magical Girl Volleyball. We have a toddler. Who's we? I don't know. And Mum says that she's taking us to a friend's place and she's lying, so I see that we pull up to this volleyball parking lot and I get really mad at her for lying, and it's never confirmed why she lied. Later at home, I talk to her about it and it's fine, and then I counsel a friend who can't sleep without background noise. Then people started dying, and I'm reading news reports as a different character in this dingy castle jumps around on the walls because the owner doesn't want them there. Then I'm going to take over the previous magical girl's place to kill the demons, and this involves killing many civilians in the process in the greater good. And I feel genuinely heavy burdens that I must accept, but I wake up before I say yes. 15th January 2019. No air and demons. I was staying in a house I didn't recognize, some dream house. The lights were broken and flickering in the dark, and there were wires hanging down and sparking. There was a living room ahead with something in the distance, but I didn't know what it was. In the hallway I was in, I had come out of the room, and there was another room to my left. In this other room was this weird rubber robot demon thing that kept flailing its arms, and someone beside me mentioned that you couldn't grip onto it if it grabbed you, so you couldn't actually push it away. It couldn't reach outside the room, so we were fine. There was no one next to me, so I don't know who spoke. Then, in this blur of high-speed dream events, I meet some other person there and they say that they're gonna get rid of the robot. I never felt the urge to go into the room, so I don't know why this was important to do, but it was. Before we actually got to the robot, my dream setting changed and we left this behind. We were in a world where they announced that there would be no oxygen and everyone was going to die on Earth, and we moved to some other planet that didn't have enough, so all the buildings had recycled air, but then we also had bottles of air with us that never ran out, and we had to sip from them outside. There were people spreading plans for how Earth could have oxygen again and fighting over it, and I was terrified that this planet would run out too. I asked my dad if everything was going to be okay, and he said yes, but I didn't believe him. At one point, I was in a group to see a play, and as I was walking outside, I was taking air, and I just resigned myself to the fact that humanity was going to die, and I became really depressed. I was too tired to climb up the weird jungle gym style seats to get to my friend in the theater, so I just sat below and she came down to me, and the rest of the dream after was me feeling how weak I was and how tight my chest was because I couldn't breathe properly and I really hated it. I woke up at 5 a.m. It's still mostly dark and I just feel really unsettled for some reason. By the air dream specifically, it feels weird to breathe normal and I don't have any breathing problems while I sleep, so I am shaken and I don't know why. That one was unexpectedly disturbing. 28th January 2019. This one is just called Cult. I was a kid with a group of like 20 other kids, and I didn't know where the adults were. We were in some fields with a tree and a hay bale and stuff like that. There was a fence somewhere too. I think it was a farm property. At some point, I said something, and the other kids all stopped and looked at me, suddenly silent and getting angry. I could tell they were angry because it was something radiating from them like heat while they remained expressionless. Then this one girl started choking, and then there was a noose suddenly around her neck. She started swinging, and I realized that she was hanging from a tree. A voice in my head said, "She's showing you how she died as a declaration of war." And this implied to be happening because I had broke through whatever facade was going on here and they were all actually dead kids. So I started running after she declared war on me, and all the other kids started chasing me, and it was like they all suddenly had marks on them that showed how they died, and I could only see it now. So the kids were all corpses. But the world started getting more decayed and glitchy, and then I had jumped up into another location, and then I woke up. 30th of January, shooting. I went to a roller coaster with a friend, and for some reason we were indoors, and the coaster was benches rising up and down in a house that stretched on and on. Then we went to a place to get food, and suddenly two of the people there started shooting up the place. Then it cuts to the aftermath where the survivors are scared and telling the police what happened. I don't remember dying, but I was an observer rather than a participant in this dream. One of the policemen said he was waiting for the werewolves to get there before we proceeded, and then I woke up. I remember the blood was very vivid and everywhere, but I didn't wake up feeling scared. 1st of February, this one is called Soul Murder. Once you looked at a certain picture or went into caves to sit on some bench underwater in ruins, you'd be blessed by some ghost spirit, and this cult would know about this and come and collect you wherever you were. By lottery, you and someone else would go into this chamber that would fill with a liquid and all of your memories would jumble and flash before your eyes. Then you would have to go into the next room and kill the other person first. Because this way the memories would loosen your soul and you would absorb the other person's soul when you killed them. This is what the cult believed. The other person's consciousness would still be rewarded by going to heaven. Some cult members started rebelling, and the higher ups decided to have a hunt where they would kill each other and as many members as they could to hurry up the soul absorption process. And there was a lot of running and hiding around, and then I woke up. What I remember is that it was implied that the souls were needed because the more souls you have, the more prepared you were for the beings that needed us as a conduit, and the souls were the body's power, but the consciousness was separated so the ones killed could be rewarded in the afterlife for their sacrifice. But the leaders decided that they would become the godlike beings themselves by collecting enough soul power, so they decided to announce a hunt. I could view the percentage of each leader's soul from my phone for some reason. It was on a scoreboard with chibi faces. Some of them were running around in my auntie's house for some reason, as if that was a part of the cultists' land. And my uncle, the cool uncle, this is a note for me, I know who this is. This is the one who taught me how to pirate media. Was reading one of the cultists a bedtime story, and then the cultist realized she didn't have any bullets and she was killed by another cultist. And no one bothered my uncle, he was just there. My uncle also doesn't live in that auntie's house. This is just completely different people. 2nd of February, called Castle and Prisoner. I was in some castle and fucking around with everyone, and then it cuts to the view of one of the characters that I wrote in a novel idea that I never did anything with, and he's being taken prisoner by some evil dude, and there's no reason why. He escapes, but then he's back there with the love interest that I also never fleshed out, so they were kind of just like a blob person, apparently. And somehow all of this is just gone in the next part of the dream. I'm in my grandpa's house during a storm, and I'm watching this whole thing play out on TV, and I'm supposed to wait for my parents to come back, but I'm just trying to kill this fly in the house that keeps escaping me. I give up and go look for something to eat, and I find the freezer outside and some ice cream. The funny thing is, the freezer was on the balcony, and my grandpa doesn't have a freezer on the balcony, yet I distinctly remember there being one there in the dream, and in another dream that I can't remember. Then I eat it, and I watch the slopes and hills outside my grandpa's house warp and shift like waves, and the cars are driving on them just fine. And then I woke up. The 6th of February 2019, we've got bugs and hiding. The first dream was me realizing some gross type of giant ant was in the house, and they had glowing eyes and ugly wings, and if you had a light, they would immediately run to the shadows like they were a vampire. I was really annoyed because I couldn't sleep because they would come onto the bed and try to bite me. And then in the second part of the dream, I was at home and I walked outside. Then it suddenly transitions to me with a group of people in this arena, and the floor was a giant tactical map, and each time we ran into trouble, we would be transported to the location on the map. For example, we were on the overworld and then run into an enemy on a volcano, so we'd be transported to a volcano and then back to walking around on the map after we finished there, and this was like some sort of Spartan game. I recall shit-talking the enemy side a lot, distinctly telling someone to go back to brushing your mom's ass hair. That sounds like something I would say in real life. Then we left and went to this weird city with shuttles on train tracks that took you throughout the city. There were no cars prohibited, so you had to use the shuttle unless you were out of the city. So we drove around on the cliff sides around the city, and there were lots of puppies and ducks for no reason. Then we went into the city, and there was red brick and cobblestone with a Victorian London aesthetic. Apparently someone was after us, so we all snuck around together to escape somewhere. With us were people with coats on, and they were from the outside of the city, but they were forced to wear colored gems across their coat and earrings depending on what they were sick or diseased with. Red was because they broke the law, yellow was because their disease was bad, and blue was for something. And then I woke up before I understood more. The 7th of February 2019, Blood, Rain, and Book. Yes, we're only up to February 2019, I know. There was a book named Solstice that was known for being so bad, but no one online said anything because the author had a team of lawyers constantly looking for negative things about it. For some reason, I was researching this online quite a bit. Then it started raining blood. Not in a scary way, it was just as if normal blood rain was real, and nothing could be stained but tissues and people. Outside was totally fine other than this. There was a man helping me with being haunted and trying to figure out what was haunting me, and it was implied I was causing the blood rain, but no one cared. I felt ashamed as if the rain was my personal nosebleed or something, and I knew it was blood because I stuck my hand out with a tissue and got stained and it smelled like blood. There was some whispering around the corner, and I'm like, I don't want to look, do you? And the ghost trapper is like, yes. And then I woke up before I could see what it was. 9th of February 2019, Vines. I was searching the internet for stories and nothing impressed me. The stories would be enacted by these crude visual crayon drawings that would shift and change to tell you what was happening in the story. I settled on these ones about plants that would come out from smoke and mist. Once they got you, they'd curl around your arteries inside your body, so they'd rip them out and you'd start dying. A med student gets trapped in the mist and is trying to get out, and he's helping people, but they die, and there's this abrupt, shitty ending where he looks around and sees all the victims welcoming him into the town that was in the mist. And Dream Me was really disappointed that I woke myself up. The second dream was me watching a haiku match, but I was standing very close as if I was part of the team as a non-player role like one of the coaches, but I was still the real me. So some of the characters decided that they needed to go back in time after the match for something I couldn't understand. And then we walked past the baby version of some of the characters, and one of them said, "Remember this uniform, you'll wish you got it," in a jokey way, but the baby character was very confused. And then we ended up at a house helping a ghost hunter from the last stream investigate the house. Don't know what's happening there. 10th of February, this is called Bioshock, but fucking wrong. That is the actual title of this. I was sitting down to watch a movie with my dad after I was just wandering around the house. My dad said that the movie was Bioshock 2, and I asked him what was happening, and he proceeded to explain something that was not at all Bioshock related. So I go into another room, and my auntie is there, and she asks me what the original Bioshock games are about. I then explain the same thing that my dad did, which is incorrect to what Bioshock really is in real life. What I explained was there were 3 characters, a woman and a brother and this weird AI man that the woman is married to. They are put in charge of stopping this plague in the underwater city of people coughing up black goo and melting, and they stop it. In the second game, they become paranoid even though everyone in the city has moved on, but the woman is convinced that the plague is back, even though it really isn't in real life. So she tries to break down the door of the sealed off lab that contains something or other. Her AI husband breaks it down and somehow dies in the process, and it was pointless because there was nothing in there. So the woman becomes extremely depressed, and her brother decides to track down an evil alchemist for some reason. Only it's revealed the brother himself invents time travel and uses alchemy and then becomes the alchemist that he wants to track down to try and bring the AI husband back to life, which is dumb. This is something that I wrote in brackets next to this. This is dumb because he could just stop the man from dying in the first place if he has a time machine, lol. Then I continue. Then I see a cockroach in the room that I'm in with my auntie, and I say, "This lab is apparently so sterile that nothing living can go in there without a suit, but there's a cockroach on your wall. Makes no sense." As if the room that I was in was part of the plot of the game on the TV. Then I go to my uncle's room, and he's sitting on the floor as if he had not set the room up besides his computer, which isn't like him in real life. And then he asked me what I was doing, and I said I was explaining a game, and then I got pissed off and I woke up. I want to point out that in 2019, I was in university, and then the next year, COVID happened. And also, I grew up going to visit my auntie and uncles and everything who all lived in the same house, like every single week, every single Saturday. I have a lot of family members popping up in my dream because I think that's just what I'm used to in real life. What's really interesting about this, though, is because I saw most of my family when I was a kid, and then during the teenager kind of and university years, I was living somewhere that was not really near them besides my parents, so the whole thing with family was still in my brain, and now I'm living in Japan, not near them at all. Something that I noticed in the October dreams from this year was that they don't show up as much, I guess because I'm drawing on stuff that's happening in my life right now instead. 12th of February 2019. I had moved houses, and I was a kid like 13 years old in the dream. And my mom and dad were in different sections of the house, so I had to stay in the loft in the other family's house, who were the people renting the place to us, and that was the condition of us staying there. The only problem was that the daughter of the family was rude and and woke, I guess. I guess even back then that was annoying to me. And she was like 17, so she cried all the time and made a big deal of everything. Maybe I was just watching too many of those stupid compilations when I was. She invited me to come outside and talk to her friend, and I said yes, but she got into an argument with me about polygamy because I said that polygamy is stupid and didn't work, and she thought that I was being sexist. And then and then she said that she didn't want to talk to me anymore, so I left saying that I didn't want to come out here anyway. She ended up crying because our friend pissed her off, so our other listen, I was half asleep at the time, so it's okay. You can't get mad at me for using that word. So our other friends came over, and she went to shower, and they all hung around in the loft even though it was my room and they shouldn't be in there. They were assholes who ignored me, and then they fucking messed up the room and vomited everywhere for some reason and left. So even though I was 13, I went and yelled at them so hard that they got scared, and I caused a wind magic to happen. So they knew I had some weird magic harpy curse. And the therapist, who I think is the parent of them, showed up and started chewing me out, but I explained everything, so they started chewing out the shitty people instead. And then it morphs into this survival show, and we're running along a beach trying to find a way to cook fish, but they can't figure it out. So I take a strip of metal and heat it by the sun, and then I leave the fish on it. Then they somehow get to a shop in the civilization part of the island and steal meat from the shop. And they're like, Omji, cook this. And then I say no and run away. And then I woke up feeling really irritated in real life. So there's a big gap where I just totally stopped doing it because I was really busy. And we return September 20th, 2019. This one is called Magic. So the dream starts with me being the captain of the guard or the king's knight, and the king is like, you must find the artifacts. And I'm like, what are the artifacts? And the king says, you know, the artifacts. And I'm like, no, and I'm very confused. So then the king says, speak to the great sage in the castle garden. So I go to the massive castle garden, and then there's this shack, and this midget kid steps out, and she's like, the enchantress trusted me with the artifacts, but alas, I lost them in the ocean. And I was like, child, the ocean is 50 million miles away from here. How the hell did you lose it in the ocean? You can't even leave the castle. So then I can tell I was very angry when I wrote this. I can tell. There's a lot of capital letters. So we go there anyway, and we see the artifacts suspended in the sea, and there's a hairband and a bottle, but I guess it's a magic hairband and a magic bottle, and there's this evil wizard monster standing on the shore. You know how in bad game cutscenes you can see the enemy just standing there in full view, yet it's acting like you can't and none of the characters can. It felt like that. So he's just turning the ocean into a washing machine every time my party tries to go in, and you can see him waggling his fingers, and I'm yelling, "Get out of the ocean, you idiots!" Then they finally get out, and then I go in for some reason, and the wizard has to magically drag me out of the water when the water went fucking spin cycle and I couldn't handle it anymore. Then the monster leaves and we finally get the artifacts and take them home. But the castle is full of townsfolk because the town got yeeted by the monsters because they were waiting for us to get the artifacts so they could steal them and destroy us all at once. And then I was just standing there saying, why is this happening? And I woke up. So now we skip some time again and we go to the 17th of February 2020. And I think this is when COVID had been going on for like a month, I think, at this point. This one is called Man. Just Man. My family were building a house, and this guy shows up by the door. He knocks and says that he is from some company, and my dad tells me to never open the door for him because he was some scam debt collection agency guy. The house has weird black lights and green lights instead of normal lights, and we were building it with our own hands and tools. The inside of the house was unfinished, but the outside was completely finished. Then this guy just starts stalking us. He would show up and knock and then stay there and walk around the house to terrorize us because he knew someone was in there and we would keep quiet. Then I started seeing shadows out of the corner of my eye in the house, and the man shoots the window. The window didn't break, but it was confirmed that he had some sort of terrifying magic power. For some reason, the rubble outside the house he hit turned into sour candy, but he kept hitting it to warn us. He dropped all pretenses of being from the debt company after this. Then Dad had no choice but to open the door, and for some reason, the dude comes in, and he and I slide across the table for some reason, and I try to attack, but all I do is claw goo away from his form that doesn't do anything. Then it cuts to him having written a book about us because he was stalking us to gather information, but no one likes the book, and he gets arrested once the information is out of what he did. Then I go to the candy store, and it has pits of candy like ball pits, and there were fat people jumping into them and then disappearing, and then I woke up. 18th of February, this one is called Fruit Hybrid. I was in some compound, like the bunker from Promised Neverland, I think that's what PN stands for, but it wasn't like an apocalypse or anything. We were being trained for some skill in this course we enrolled in. There were fruit in a bowl in the dining place and they had labels on them. While the teacher was talking about some lesson, I took this thing labeled hybrid mango pear and ate it, and it was mediocre. I ate it and the teacher didn't see me, so then we fast forward a bit later, still in the room, and the teacher freaks out and says, "There are fruit hybrids in here. Those are bad for you because they're not natural. Get rid of them." And then starts freaking out as she finds the fruits and places them outside the door and closes the door. Then we're in the supermarket and they have a lot of hybrid fruit like banana mint, which was stripes yellow and green, and apple orange, which was like a perfect sphere, and the teacher went insane while my friend and I just laughed in the back. I wake up and go to sleep, and the dream is now this. There is a long-haired Asian man who is walking along his massive estate. He has an exact copy of himself that appeared a few months ago. He's narrating all of this to me in his brain, and the doppelganger is completely like him, but not evil. He has some philosophical problem I can't remember. So he plans to kill himself because he discovered the copy of him feels pain when he does. For some reason, it reminded me of The Prestige. His wife then treats both copies as him because she can be with him when he goes to work, and then she could just go hang out with the copy as if there was nothing wrong with that. So he's walking into the forest to strangle himself, and then he jerks back and coughs because he sees the copy is in the lake with his wife, and the copy has started drowning himself. They both stop for some reason, and one of them sprouts gory demon wings and fangs, and both start fighting and jumping around in the place they live in. I don't know where the wife went. While this is happening, I'm suddenly sitting there watching it eating hybrid fruits. I'm being ignored by the demons, and they're just fighting while I'm sitting there munching, and then I wake up. 20th of February 2020. This one's called Phone. Dad had a broken phone, so I asked if he wanted my old phone because I wanted to upgrade. In real life, I don't know why in brackets I put, in real life I'm not planning to. My current phone is fine, and I don't know why the dream is about phones. And then I continue. He says no, whacked his phone on the table, and said that it was fixed, and it was actually fixed. After a while, he said that it was broken again, so I would go down to buy a new phone, and he could have the old phone when I was done. For some reason, we lived in an apartment and we had lots of bright colors. I go to this tech store and it's all dingy and dark as if it's eternal night, but this is apparently normal for tech stores. I walk into a room with old women sitting in a circle and I linger for a bit, but I don't like it there, so I leave. I try to find the stuff I need, including a Bluetooth speaker and a new charger, and then get into an argument about something with the people in the store. I just take my stuff and leave, and it's nighttime. Some other people in Halloween costumes leave with me. One is dressed as a bee for some reason, and we have to go very carefully because if a car with headlights spots you, bad things happen, but I don't know what. Okay, 21st of February 2020. We're getting through this. This one is called Ship and Bookstore. I was going to this bookstore a lot, and people who go there a lot become famous for book reading. I don't know why, but the part of the dream was me looking at books, but I wasn't me in the dream, I was some random guy. Then I walk out of the bookstore in this kind of French looking villa, and there is a cruise ship parked there, and my friend is there on the bench in the place that watches the ships go by. We hang out, and then I say I'm going back to our cabin because I need to put away my jacket, which is suddenly really heavy. My friend gets pissed off at me needing to put stuff in my room, but I leave and go and do it. In the cabin room, I'm looking down at them on the bench, and some dumb shit starts to bully my friend, so I open the window and cuss them out, and they leave, and my friend isn't mad at me anymore. Then one of the bullies climbs up the side of the ship and tries to get into my window, so I beat his ass and take out a kitchen knife and say something like, "This was a warning, but if you want me to make it clearer, that's your call," and he leaves. Then I change form, because I guess that's a thing, and I become a French maiden, and I go and sit with the others who know about magic, and they don't know that I can change form, so they don't know who I am. One of them suddenly reveals she's a weird demon siren that releases a mist that makes everyone freeze, and she sings, and the ship slowly turns into stone, and she wants to absorb my power by eating me. It doesn't affect me, and I'm running around and diving in and out of the walls, as in, I can actually phase through those things, like in that one scene of the men who stare at goats. So I escape and go to the roof, and we're suddenly in the middle of the ocean. The ship is also sinking because of the stone, and the evil lady knows this, so she laughs. I use all my power to force the ship to move, as if shoving it with Jedi powers and using the weight of the ship to keep it from moving. It suddenly moves through the mist and ends up on the beach of the Dragon Quest island, and I don't know how the evil lady is defeated, but she just is. 28th of February, elevator. I was in this stupid hotel, massive resort type of place. I left someone in this makeup shop where you could only go in there twice per day, and I had one time left to go back inside. Two friends were trying to figure out how to get to the floor below. They were on floor 23 and had to get to floor 22, but the elevator went down to 21, so they had to figure out how, and there were people on that level, so it made no sense. They then slide down some fabric and jump into a palm tree to get down and call up after me, and I'm like, "No, you're crazy, I'm finding another way." And then I take the lift down to 21 and just walk onto the patio for a bit and find some stairs, and I'm like, "This is the proper way, you idiots." There's some dolphin turning into a kaiju nearby, but we completely ignore this. Then I go back inside makeup store for my second time and drag my friend out and then go off somewhere and it ends. The 2nd of March 2020, we have Witch Tunnel. There's a massive hole in the earth going down so far that I don't know how big it is, and inside there are different levels with cities in them, and we went down via a ladder or something. There were all levels for witches to live, with each witch of a different type living on each level. So, some younger, more humanoid witches lived on the upper levels, and the more down you went, the more ghoulish and old they looked, and the fewer there were. So, it means that the type of magic was different, but I can't remember what types there were. Maybe the more you used the magic, the more body horror happened to you. The witch had been banished to one of the bottom levels for some reason, and everything was yellowed and covered in dust. And the woman who I was in the dream was aging a lot to the point where she had a lot of wrinkles and white hair, even though she wasn't actually that old. She knew she had to escape, so she started sneaking off so the other ghouls wouldn't notice. They realized and said some weird demon thing after her. She escapes and briefly thinks about how no one knows what's down the bottom expanse, but maybe the ghouls know, and then she makes her way up and there's some modern mall that has nothing to do with this. 4th of March 2020, Blood Chargers. I was going to a hotel with family or on road trips, and this kind of stuff was happening in the background, but I can't remember the specifics. The main part of the dream, the disturbing part, was when I would need to charge something like a phone or something, the plugs would come with this button where you could press it and some spiky blade hooks would come out. I would jam them into my skin and the charger would just hang there and my blood would be powering the electronics. Every time it did that, it would hurt, but I didn't react to the pain in the dream, but I distinctly remember it hurting. And no one else would notice me doing this or even do it themselves. It was like I was the only one who did this, but everyone thought it was normal. 6th of March 2020, sinking ship. I was in this ship, like a big commercial ship, and it ended up sinking, and then I and a group of people got out and clung to something, and it was implied days went past, yet we were trapped in eternal night for some reason, and there was a lot of me looking at the water down below and freaking out about how I saw no bottom to it. Also, a lot of me almost drowning and not breathing correctly. I'm also not what's the word for being afraid of the ocean, like thalassophobia or something? I'm not like that in real life, so I don't know why this is in the dream. Then we got rescued and I got interviewed on TV, and I said something like, when the ship sunk, I was terrified that we were the only survivors. When I saw a few figures surfacing, I thought I was wrong. Then I saw one float by of a dead baby floating on the corpse of its mother, and I realized how still the other figures were, and I realized how terrifyingly inaccurate my assumption was. And then I woke up after I made that statement. 9th of March 2020, we have demons and dogs and movies. It starts with me watching a movie review for John Carpenter's Ghosts of Mars, which is a bad movie in reality, but in this dream it was actually a really good movie about a base that was haunted by a demon and the crew was slowly being infected by some flesh monster. In the dream, I had a friend who was a foster parent to dogs, so the dogs showed up. There was a King Cavalier, a Border Collie, and a German Shepherd, specifically, but they were kind of still puppies, like just out of the main stage of being a puppy. Then I walk out and it changes to being a child, and the demons have infiltrated and body snatched people. The mom is a demon, so the child wants to get away, but the demon has taken out the child's heart and pelvis and replaced them with mimics so that the demon controls how far it is away from it. And if the child gets too far away, the mimics disappear. So basically, if the child tries to run, his heart and pelvis vanish. I think at one point his eyes are replaced and they're walking on this long bridge high above the trees to some place, and the demon is quizzing the child on something to do with music with a gun to the child's head and laughing. The child then somehow jumps off the bridge and attacks from below because the more the demon replaced body parts, the more that he accidentally gave the child powers or something, and the demon gets defeated and reveals itself, so the cop starts shooting at it and people run, but the child is dying beneath the bridge with his organs and eyes gone, and he's like, it's okay because I defeated the evil. And then it goes back to the puppies and I woke up. 11th of March 2020, this is a very short passage called Sea Demon. My old friend is talking to me again in high school, and they're all going to classes in the big hall area, and I had art, but I wasn't paying attention. We have to run after school, but it isn't my friend. It's a group of people that I don't know in real life. Then there's someone who lost his friend and we investigate, but there's a demon, again, there's a lot of these for some reason, in the water who took him, so we make some plans to investigate this and how to get him back, but then I just walk away from the ocean and I wake up, so RIP to that guy, I guess. 12th of March 2020, swimming and diary. I am in high school again, but present age, and everyone is just there. The auditorium has some swords and plushy snakes for some reason, and you can go get them, and one of the tents is pitched inside there. We go and get some stuff, and they find this, who they is, I don't know. They find this book and read some of it, and it reads every memory and relationship of someone that we know. We see the someone, and she says something to make fun of me, but I rattle off some very personal, embarrassing events of her life that no one is supposed to know about. She freaks out and it turns into a mystery to see who wrote that and how. It even has op-eds by her friends and interviews of people that she knew, and her friends never did that. Those friends don't even know half of the stuff that was in there, so they couldn't have written it, and we form an alliance to try and figure it out. Then my friends want to go to the pool gardens, so we walk around the long way and come to the series of gardens and pools interspersed that people are using. My friends ask if they can use the gated garden, but it's apparently not open today, so we go to the public ones, and I stay on the edge of the pool because I don't want to wear a swimsuit. Self-conscious. In real life, I'm also self-conscious about that. A few others were there, like, oh, but you can put this one on, it's fine. And I'm like, no, it's not that simple. And we chat there for a while before I have to go return the swords to the gym while they get dressed. So I go back, and the auditorium is now covered in real snakes, but they don't bother anyone. We hadn't used the swords at all, so I don't know what the point of that was. Then I'm living in a massive house, like it's a massive tower with rooms and hallways on every level, and I'm packing for a vacation, and I have a bunch of hats to pick from, and some of them just don't fit me. I choose some short brown sun hat and then go do laundry, which is in a big room like an auditorium, and then I wake up, and I guess we never revisit that book. 16th of March 2020, Confusing University Dream. Dad and I were going to some academy because Dad wanted to see if I could get results for some exam period early if I went and did it early. We asked the guy at the gate who was poking his head out of a hole in the wall like he was going to ask the password before opening the gate or some shit. He said that can't happen, but let us inside anyway. Everything up to the gate looked like Panda's house. I mean Panda from Shirokuma Cafe. And inside was just a mismatch of styles. Like, we went into an old warehouse that apparently served as an auditorium, and there were these professors who were on TVs as holograms throughout. We went and talked to them, and I forgot what they said. We then walked through this industrial back exit that had ladders and looked like shipping crates and diving boards glued together over a river. I was really, really scared as I went on the ladder for some reason. After that, it's me in a bigger auditorium in the neighborhood where me and two dream friends were just lying on the floor watching people play what looked like volleyball, but the ball was floating and they have to somehow make it float over the other team. We leave and the friends go the other way, and then I go out the door and I'm suddenly in medieval times, like a fucking Skyrim thing, and there's a massive rocky tunnel, so I take some LSD and the world starts glitching. Then the guards in red get angry at me for taking LSD, and I escape them chasing me and then go to the docks, and I don't know what I'm waiting for. I think it's near Whiterun. Then it cuts to my neighborhood, and I am talking to other people about Men in Black, the movie, and I spot them in a car, and I had long detailed accounts of them in the dream that I can't remember. 18th of March 2020, Depressing Spaceship Dream. It was a weird dream where I was in the third person and I was watching the main person in the dream doing their thing. They were on a ship that was going to another planet to transport cargo, and then something happens where the ship gets lost and the power keeps going out. There's some weird disease breaking out on the ship too. The ship is massive and there's lots of crew. The main character has vertigo and has this tech stuff on his eyes to be able to see the stars and navigate better, but they malfunction, so he keeps hallucinating, falling through infinity, and gets freaked out. This is represented by him floating in this bright fire-colored aurora borealis thing. He's one of the only few survivors, so he wakes up in a hospital with all his friends and family, including his wife or husband, I couldn't tell the gender, and they all rejoice, and he's so happy to see them, but then everything warps and random dream stuff happens and he jerks awake still on the ship. He cries and goes back to sleep. I think it skips and he hangs himself, and it shows that the ship is empty and flying towards the sun years later. It reminds me of that one sci-fi movie about the ship that gets lost off its course, and I can't remember the name. I'll put the name on screen. And then I woke up and I was depressed. 19th of March 2020. The Storm and Lunches. First off, there was a massive storm outside, and I was in the grocery store with my family. We were putting things back because we didn't want them, and there was a storm outside, one of those big purple dream storms. So it basically means that I had noticed that I had had some dreams where there was these big spirally purple, very intense, or blue, very intense storms, and I would look up and I would feel vertigo when I would see them. I was in this volunteer facility for these toddlers that are also like fairies. They were completely innocent and just needed to be taken care of, but there was a thing about how the toilets needed to be cleaned, but they kept needing to piss, so I was getting them to line up while the janitor managed one toilet at a time. Then a massive snake attacks that came from the storm. Then some weirdos start trying to fight to protect the toddlers, and a villain comes out to banter. So I huddle the toddlers away, and I go to the back room filled with nurses and doctors as the villain fucks off, and the main dude gets bitten by the snake. I don't know who the main dude is. I think he's the main guy fighting the snakes. And then the snake dies. Then the nurse takes care of it and instructs me and some others to make sandwiches for the shelters in a storm while the toddlers are checked up on. It's whole wheat with cheese, chicken, lettuce, and cucumber, and something else. So I'm very specific about the food that they're eating. And then the storm gets even worse and even more purple. The head doctor comes in and says something about the storm, and people freak out, but I can't remember what he said. 23rd of March, Ghost. A real life friend of mine was messaging me about this festival they were going to, and apparently there were lots of urban legends associated with it. So I say that I'm passing that area, and if I get there, I can see him there. Meanwhile, I'm traveling with dream friends to this other place I don't remember. We're passing through this beautiful mountain road where it's rocks and a village on one side and a valley on the other side, so it's a bit dangerous, but it's fine. At one point, I think I see a mountain goat running on two legs, but I don't see anything. We stop by this mountain hotel thing that claims to be haunted by a friendly ghost of the owner, and I'm ordering food, and the dog that we apparently have is there. I can see its floof being pressed down like it's being petted, so I know there really is a ghost. I also see flyers being straightened and feel a hand on my shoulder when I trip. My friends also feel this, but I'm the one who talks out loud to the ghost a bit, so he seems to give me more ghost activities. I wake up in the middle of the night and hear or feel something calling me to some place in this lodge. It's a dimly lit dead end of a hallway with a big ass mirror, so I go and look at it. Suddenly, I feel an urgent pressure around me and a tight chest, and I can't move, so I watch this massive accident taking place in the kitchen area, and a lot of staff had died in this past event. I think its correlation is with the ghost, but it's never exactly explained why. I'm upset by this and I go to bed again. I wake up the next morning and the ghost isn't there. So I explain the thing that happened to me to the friends, and they say that they have vague memories of weird dreams, so they believe me, and then I wake up. 26th of March, body swap. I was in university for some chemistry thing, and one day swapped bodies with this guy I don't know after some magic bullshit where I passed out in these magical woods and woke up feeling stitches inside me. So someone had taken our souls and wrapped them manually and sewed them inside us by somehow sewing our insides and no clipping through the skin. I don't know how to describe. Yeah, no kidding. I'm trying to keep cool, but it starts storming, and I run and get inside a university building and see massive purple storms outside from the other dream. I go to class, and a friend of this guy I'm in the body of sits next to him. They go through roll call, and apparently I or this dude in my body isn't at class, and no one has seen them since yesterday, and I saw the others looking for this person. Meanwhile, I start acting weird, according to the friend, and there's some typical awkwardness, but then I lean over and say I've been body swapped, and he looks at me like I'm insane, but actually gets concerned and says we should talk about it later, but he wants to know more. Then there's something about the thoughts in the class being noisy, and the lecturer has this thing about taking your chair away and making you sit on the floor if you transgress his classroom rules. Then there's some lady looking for me in a grassy field, and it looks like some magic spirit dimension, so my body is stuck there. And then there's some ritual where I and the guy's body end up trying to drink booze, and a shaman cuts me, and it was painful and it didn't work. 28th of March 2020 does not actually have a title. It just says synopsis, which is like the default for the no title in this app. I only know my dream was ominous because of the feeling waking up and the fact that I'd bitten both of the insides of my cheeks, which is annoying. I vaguely remember being in some derelict, maybe post-apocalyptic area and fixing a train track with some improvised thing, thinking I was helping, and then it derails and there was another purple storm, and it made me feel like I was falling very intensely. This dream is a little soupy, but I know the basics. I would describe my dream as soupy because I would remember like vague things, but I wouldn't really remember all of it. It takes place in a series of buildings connected to a resort with tilts over a forest with walkways connecting everything. Near the start of it, I was in this home connected to a massive basement and boiler room with my family, and it was on ground level, so I assume we ran the place. I had mice in a cup for some reason, and I let some of them out. Then I was like, oh shit, now I need to find them again. So I put cheese down and waited. Then I came back and there were these creepy crabs on the floor and mutated mice all standing across the floor in the entire room around the cheese. Then everything went completely silent and they all just stared at me. But I heard my family open the door, so I ran off, and then when I came back, the mice were normal and inside the cup. What was weird was during this crab thing, I was a bit lucid, so I was making decisions trying to not have the mutant mice attack me. It cuts to me and my family carrying a bunch of long rugs through the walkways, and there was some religious group that booked out some of the bigger resort units, and I walked past one of them who said that the rug was part of some bad religion. There was a false Jesus, and the other room had black Israelites. So I don't know what happened because it cuts to Mum driving a truck beside a railway to get supplies and coming back while driving around cars, and Mum hates driving in real life. Anyway, somehow I need to go to the basement and boiler because I need to fix something while everyone else is out, and I feel so alone. I go down and feel like more of those creepy things are about, but I can't see them. I turn on my phone light and just swing wildly because I can't see where they are besides vague shapes, but they are defeated, and I do my job and get out. Then I find out my phone has been recording, so my dad asks to see what the monsters were. They were these horrifying, stretched cartoon 2D things that somehow existed in this dimensional space, and got even more warped as I hit them until they died. Vaguely remember this part, and I remember waking up genuinely scared because something about like cartoon or some other thing that doesn't actually fit in the same dimensional frame as us, but like warps itself to try and do so, freaks me out in the same way that like oversaturation kind of freaks me out, and I don't know why. But I remember this. I was waiting in the cafe to check out because my perspective was now changed to guest. I get a takeaway box and have free range to eat what I want because it's part of my holiday package, and I take some cakes and pastries and then just some food. So I guess in the dream I just got hungry or something, I don't know. 6th of April 2020. I told you this video was long. Alien Colony Dual Reality Planet is the title of this. This is a continuation of the dream that I had where the Earth was dying and there were a bunch of these different oxygen chambers, and then I got really depressed because like I was feeling like I was dying or something. This is a continuation of that. In this world, it feels like dark evening all the time because of the dust storms constantly overhead that don't come below to that sentence just ends. People are going down this cliff face into this old looking arena, and all these demon looking creatures are meeting them with loincloths and clubs, but they also have bows. The humans have swords and arrows and wear some armor that equals what thick skin of aliens. Some of these sentences that just end, they don't really make sense. After the fight and up the cliff face, the humans are going back up. One says that the creatures allow them fighting for their freedom, but only with primitive tools, and this is just a game for the creatures because primitive fighting is their sport. Then it goes to them surviving a harsh, poor compound area and working while the TV plays some show. There's only like 100 of them. It's implied that the people in the show are in the compound above them on another cliff face, and they're being filmed while they do things because the aliens are like, the human slaves need entertainment to keep working, so we should make another compound with humans to make reality TV for them to watch. And also use this compound for their entertainment by occasionally dropping in nasty things to see what happens. The workers in the compound can't turn off the TVs and know they're watching the other compound being filmed. It wasn't told to them, but it's kind of obvious. Also, the aliens have these disguises they put on when they're around humans outside of the fighting pit that makes them look like skinwalkers pretending to be humans because they either can't get it right or they do it on purpose to freak the humans out psychologically. It then cuts to the inside of the TV compound, and it's a weird layout to describe because the dream never really made a coherent layout. There's this one area with loads of shops and another of residential sleeping pods. Cameras for the humans turn off at night. There's another area with some open space, and the humans are brought into the open area, and there's a lot of cages and esoteric shapes with holes in them. The cages open and puppies come out, and they go play around with the shapes, and then they take notice of the humans and play with them. The humans are on guard, but some idiots jump in, and the guy that I'm in the perspective of is like, and then I realized they brought the bone hounds out again. And these were implied to be dog DNA. They mutated so the clones had mouths like snapping turtles, but massive razor teeth on the inside to bite the humans because they wanted to get at and ingest bone. So the guy that I am in the dream starts snapping the puppies' necks and gets everyone else to do the same. Then they are made to go and do their usual thing at the pod areas and reality TV. Eventually, this hacker finds the series of clues by some, I don't know who William Minerva, I can't remember who this is, type guy, and manages to find a way out of the walls by marking out the blind spots of the camera. There's a computer that she has to do some intense thing with while I and another person stand there watching, and then we escape into the bright, pretty Dragon Quest looking world, and they also have sci-fi tech. This is like the 5th time I bring up Dragon Quest. I like Dragon Quest. So then we try and figure out what's happening, and we eventually meet an underground group connected to the Royal Guard who know about the evil group and want to take them down, but the general public, composed of peaceful humans and aliens, don't know about this. They explain that the planet has 2 realities, metaphysically existing on top of each other, but the one that is above becomes the dominant one and reflects on how the planet looks, and what people get to when they land there. That sentence just ends. These guys want to be the dominant side again, so now the bad side is somehow using machines to manipulate their side to keep it on top. So we start training to fight properly with them, and there's some rope climbing exercises involved. One of them had found something left by the ancients that said, "How swiftly one's perception beautifully shatters," and they were trying to figure out what this means and why the word swiftly was in bold, but I never understood what was up with that. Also, I think the evil world was mentioned to be called Nendris or something, and the good world starts with an A. And then I woke up. So that was like a whole bunch of lore there. 12th of April 2020 was called Weird School. I had to do some stupid presentation, and there was a massive Shinto shrine that I was levitating, and I broke it in half by accident or something. Then I had to walk back through the school with a real-life friend of mine because they needed something before their group did it. So we walked back through, and there was a mall set up, and it was all gold, but there were different types of classes. There was also an open section of fields with bits that looked like a city street. There was also a dark area underground where there was a bunch of hallways and rooms for students who needed darkness, including for some plants and science stuff and film and photography kids. We went back to the presentation, and for some reason while I was watching, I felt like throwing up, so I did. But it was some sticky, grey, liquid granite stuck to my teeth that I had to pull out. I then had a flashback of having lunch with my aunt and figured out that I was sick from that. So afterwards, my friend and I wanted to go home, but it was raining super hard, so we stole a massive umbrella that was lying there and promised to ourselves that we were going to leave it at the gate, so not really stealing it. So we went and took a different route to the dark hole and came by some more nature places with lots of clotheslines that were for some reason arranged like laser traps in spy movies, but nothing happened when you touched them, so I just climbed on top and bolted across. For some reason, the dream ended with a view of dark hallways as if there was a camera shot for something and someone was explaining something like the voiceover from a creepy silent film. Wait, how would they be voicing over us? So it's been an entire week or more because I had stuff to do. We're resuming on the 17th of April 2020 with Bad Demon. There's a man who is taking his daughter up into the clouds because they're both spirits who just died, and they disintegrate into the clouds. Then the bad guys who are also dead try to float up, but somehow get turned around and they don't realize they turned around and they end up in the ground. The backdrop to this is a lake with a forest surrounding it and a house up on the incline leading to the lake. There's a path on the side that looks like a driveway and implied to go to the city. The bad guy ghosts end up in some cobblestone underground area where they wander the buildings and halls trying to find a way out, but they can't. The lesser evil of them finds a room with a DJ who hands them headphones, and they play the Lego Island soundtrack forever. Then it switches to the same house again, and it goes between me being a viewer who is disconnected from the events and me being the perspective of someone in the dream. The father is walking around a cabin and has an urge to go down to the lake. He sees this horrifying creature come up from the bottom, but it's too dark to see, and the water hides it well. So he gets scared, but some monkey bars show up from the lake, and the demon pushes it up so the man is crouched on them in the air, and the demon is just underneath. It also grows its head to the size of a car and says it wants his 2 daughters. There's some arguing I can't remember, but ultimately the man agrees as long as his life is spared. The demon laughs at him being a coward, agrees, and leaves. Then later on it comes back just to check on him and sees the daughter, a little girl now, has some weird charms and stuff hidden under her bed and something was put in her food at dinner. The demon rages and kills him and her while the other daughter hides and escapes. And I remember the dream skipping over the killing in a way to imply that it was so horrifying we can't comprehend it. It turns out the dad had promised the demon his daughters because he had a plan to make them immune to the demon, and if the demon had waited and come later as promised, it would have not been able to do something. At which point the dad, who was training, would spring out and kill it to save his family. So I guess that I don't know what I was watching at the time that this is what happened. And the secret daughter who got away grows up, and there's some bullshit where my brain decided that I needed a dream where I had a cute cat, and we got ready to sleep. And then demon minions show up and are spoopy. The girl meets a boy who helps her, and there are cultists in the town, so they have to be careful. Eventually, the demon captures the boy, and the girl is tricked into coming to this secret bell tower with a spiral staircase. She gets down there, and the demon was disguised as him, and it has a partial human disguise, but you can see some xenomorph trying to burst out of the human skin. I don't know where the demon takes them, but there's a building where there's all these poor peasant-looking people. One building would move forward, so they'd need to back up to the other building, and they were in a pit, so they couldn't get out and run across the street. I assume this means that the buildings are like trying to crush them. There was a point where the other residents could hear crunches and screams each time the building moved a little closer. This was caused by the demon standing on the rooftop, and it was implied to be the repeat of a terrible event in history called the Night of the Bone Dust, where people were crushed like this, and the fact it's repeating and there are horrible storms means it's a sign of the end times. And I woke up and felt really uncomfortable. No kidding. April 21st, 2020. Apocalypse. I'm with a group of people who go to the wilderness and stay in large manors that serve as lodges. There are aliens who get to you and make you go crazy, and the majority of the people there got turned crazy by lightning, so are running around at night during a storm, trying to go between houses and trying to find a safer place, while the ones infected among us, I'm not going to say it, start getting hot and hallucinating. And I mean hot in like temperature. I don't 22nd of April 2020. Virtual reality and Jordan Peterson rice ball. Wait, I remember this one. There's a virtual reality game, and to join, you have to call a number on a landline and state your character name, and it will say that you have joined and then hang up. I'm with some people, and one of them is an old naggy lady who calls but nags everyone else over the phone and it hangs up because she didn't state her name. There's an argument with her about how she should figure out how to get into the team again by calling support or some shit. I actually wrote some shit in my summary. And inside the game itself, there's a derelict atmosphere, and it's gross, like something went wrong, but I don't know what. I start calling people parasites for some reason, and they join some other group that I made for them if they got called parasites, as if it's a designation that I'm giving them. And I was insulting them too, so I don't know what that was. Then we went up some stairs to some lady's house, and she just let us in and let us do whatever. I had to throw a rotten apple out of the window, and every time I opened the window, there was another window underneath. When I finally got the window open, I threw the apple, but it kept getting stuck in the tree outside. Then I wander around and sit down at one point, and it's night, and for some reason, Jordan Peterson is there explaining why Australia sucks, while I stack fried rice into a bowl that never seems to be able to be filled. And then Jordan Peterson starts insulting the floral patterns on the bowl that I'm using, and I get angry at him, and I wake up. The 27th of April 2020. A real-life friend and I were waiting for the bus, but I had to take different buses named after fruit for some reason. Like, the friend was taking apple bus, and I was taking blueberry, but they arrived at different times as me. At nighttime, I was waiting, and then my friend walked up to me, and I was like, I just saw you got on the bus? And my friend said no, but was really angry and physically tense. After we argued and yelled, the friend ran off, and for some reason I took a picture of her running away. I texted my friend saying, I'm not mad that you're mad, I just want to know what I did. And my friend says, what are you talking about? And sent me a picture of them at home, and the TV showed the current time. So I sent them the picture of the weird double of them pretending to be them, and was like, then who the hell was that? And they freak out, so say that we're never going to wherever we went that caused that again. I'm the only one left on the street when my bus comes because it's so late, and I'm the only one on the bus. So when I get on, there's some nightmare thing that I can't remember where I'm eating sweet noodles and the lights are flickering, so I know that there's a ghost. The 30th of April 2020. World Pool. Not Whirlpool, World Pool. There was a pool in a warehouse barn that sucked you into another world, and there are people on a farm that would get resources through the world pool, but it would suck you in so they'd keep it covered unless they were trying to get resources. I was doing barn maintenance and the cover slipped off and the ladder I was on completely broke off and I fell towards the pool, but I woke up. It was like an SCP thing where there was the lake in that barn or something. So then we skip all the way to the 10th of June 2020. It's called Dead People Train. Have you been keeping a tally of how many times I've said demon or dead people in the titles of these things? There's a series of trees that sprouted and people cut them, but some horrible mist comes out that turns everything permanently bluish and dark. So I'm assuming like some sort of early 2000s horror movie. It was like an apocalypse, but instead of zombies, the dead people were these weird I Am Legend, the book, vampire-looking things that behaved like humans. Only evil as hell. So normal humans, to be honest with you. I was living in a train carriage that I had turned into a home, and for some reason it was moving on the tracks like a normal train, but none of those monsters had actually seen me. Okay, this is something that I probably should explain. I really like the aesthetic of taking some either transport vehicle or a building and then it's like repurposed into a house. And there's lots of like potted plants everywhere and stuff like that, like a loft house type of thing. I really like to draw those, so I guess that came into my dream back then because I was thinking about it a lot. I think they didn't use the trains or vehicles, but everything was still running without drivers as if in a purgatory of mimicking normalcy. I would lie down and hide below the windows when the train would move past the city because I had to, just in case, even though the windows were covered with one-way tape. You know the tape you use to cover car windshields and windows. But the evil people would all sing some really creepy sounding hymn every single morning. In the dream, I was a horror author who had just come out with a bestseller a few months before the apocalypse began, so the city was filled with billboards of it, and some of the evil people were even mimicking some of the monsters in it as if it was a joke. And that was really creepy for me in the dream. The only other person I end up meeting at first is one of those evil people who for some reason isn't actually evil, but he's really nihilistic and helps me and sticks around living in the train, but then the reluctant friendship thing happens. One day he's out getting some supplies and a child is hiding in my train when I come back. I'm really cautious but end up trying to get near. The child is really jumpy but reaches out and then the hymn starts as the train moves to the city and the nihilistic person pushes me back and stabs me in the shoulder with a knife I didn't see before running into the rest of the train and I don't go after them. At one point, one of the evil people finds us. There's a dead friend guy that I haven't explained before, so I don't know who this is. And we have a fight after some stealthing mechanics. And the child comes back to help, and I woke up before I know what happened. We then jump to the 31st of August 2020 with Aloe Monster, like aloe vera monster. There's a person in a mall where there's an attack by these weird tentacles, and it seems like they trap people with goo and travel along the ground super fast. They kill a lot of people, and somehow I find out aloe vera drink makes you not be seen by the monster. So I go around finding as much as possible and see other people doing the same because they somehow figured it out. For a moment, I keep thinking that mine for myself is more important and want to hide, but decide to save a few people reluctantly. We go deep into the mall and find an underground employee place with servers and generators and staff stuff. And there's this weird blob that looks like it absorbed different people to make a human form, but there's spider bits coming out of it and warming itself by the warm generators. There's a standoff with this thing, and I keep needing to conserve my aloe, but in the end, it splashes on the monster and that beats it up, and it turns into a gross puddle and I leave. And then I realize that a lot of people are dead like post-apocalypse, but there's people planning to repair the earth, so it's okay. We have 1st of October 2020, Sci-Fi Slave Colony. There is someone who I am in the dream who isn't me, being hit on by some weird person, and for some reason I can kind of see that he looks like a demon underneath himself. Another tally for the demon, please. Later on, I see him trying to lead off some 6-year-old, so I stop it. What is this, wash? I think we're in a massive hotel resort area because there's a massive mall inside the resort, and then a massive area where the residents are. I think you can tell at this point, I go through phases throughout the years where I watch a lot of those urbex videos where people explore abandoned resorts and malls, there were those like backrooms games that I really liked, so I guess that's just coming out in the dreams a lot. So I go back to my place and see that there is a 6-year-old and the angry mom there, and she gets mad at me because my daughter was chosen by the one who ascends. And I guess that was the guy that was talking to me before, and not a pedophile. Definitely not. There's some weird cult talk, and I look at her hand and see that she stolen a dress from me. I'm like, what the hell? And she says that the dress is to prepare the 6-year-old, and they walk off. Inside the place I'm staying, there's a mom and a dad and a sibling and a grumpy old grandpa. For some reason, there's something on the news about a grocery store called Green Goods that was renamed to Nimato in katakana, and everyone thought that it was dumb. There's a nice dude who works in the hotel secretly being an evil man who had something to do with the cult, like a recruiter, and the hotel owner themselves had something to do with the cult. This is actually a planet that's a resort, like a holiday planet, but the guests don't know that there's actually a big slave colony underneath that are treated horribly, and sometimes people who find out go missing, like that one Omelas book. Oh, right. The cult runs it, even though there are normal employees who also don't know about them, for some space demon. I confront the hotel owner, and I think the nice dude is on my side, but he shoots the owner and then turns the gun on me and says that he can be the leader now. Then the owner was only pretending to be dead and shoots him and me, and then he shoots her again as he's dying, so they're both dead, and I genuinely think lol. So then there's a note here that I woke up and there's a thunderstorm, and then now this is the continuation of the second dream that I had afterward. Then I'm a different person and I have a companion. I guess we escaped from the first place where we were the hotel slaves, and we go to this other planet where this big revenge plot to shut down the cult from the source. So we go to the source and have to disguise ourselves as slaves in that place, and we have another companion who's one of the rich employees, so we have to teach them to do the right non-suspicious things. We see on the TV that one of the elites on this planet is the evil dude who survived after being shot at the thing that happened earlier. The rich people on this planet fully know about the slave colony and use them, and it's not like the other place. We meet up with some others who have a plan to assassinate the key ringleaders. I think there's 12 of them. And then I wake up before anything exciting happens, I guess. October 16th, 2020, Ending World. It was me and a group of people who got sent to the future, and it was a crazy dystopia where people were infected by something, and there was some ancient god fucking manifested into existence by these fuckers, and we had to get out of here. I don't know why I'm swearing so much in this one. We had to get back to the original time, and everyone's like, we did it, the dystopia doesn't happen now, and I felt that something isn't right. One of the people in the group had gotten caught by the god, but we managed to drag him back, and it had spawned in another him, was killing himself in front of us and glitching out, and we couldn't do anything about it. Back in our normal town, I have kids, and we were setting up a tent on the roof to stargaze, and one of them mentioned seeing a hanging man in the sky. At another point, we woke up to one of the kids across the street in the middle of traffic as if they had sleepwalked. I then found something else I don't remember, and I start going nuts and screaming, we didn't stop the god or the disease, it can't be stopped, we just delayed it, it's never going to be stopped, might as well kill ourselves now so we don't have to witness humanity ending, but no one believed me and I woke up in a really bad mood. 2nd November 2020. It's called Sand Growth. I was in a desert and there's a village. I think everyone had rations, so they just kept getting lazy and not setting up farming or anything because of this. For some reason, we had lots of water, as if the water could just be materialized. There were also some weird bunny-type creatures that were getting dirty and sick, and people were lying around and not doing any work. I think by bunny creatures, I mean those things from Dragon Quest. That's what I'm thinking about. So me and some others tried to take the bunnies to the pool to clean them, but people got mad that we were doing work, and we shouldn't be doing that. And there was a leader that took over from the lazy sheriff and had been working in the desert with the desert demons. Add another one to the tally, folks, because she had supernatural powers. We escaped the town and walked for a long time before we found a good spot to set up and actually start growing plants and experimenting with plant hybrids, and there were lots of water there too. At one point we were going out and had to hide behind some rocks during a forage mission. The reason why was because an evil lady and her henchmen were looking for us and looking to destroy the farm. And she killed one of the bunnies and drank its blood and then marked her chest with it, and her two henchmen had weird stand powers like Jojo. I don't remember what happened, but she tried to fight us and we escaped again and went back to growing plants. I was giving a pep talk to a depressed defector of the original camp and I woke up. I definitely think I was playing too much Dragon Quest Builders or something. That strikes me as what was happening. 9th of November 2020, we have Death Scrabble. There's this weird perspective thing, like me and the other people are smaller than everything else like fairies. It's just that way as soon as the dream starts, so I don't know what was up with that. But we were running around in this giant world, or flying around, because we were flying, but I didn't get a good look at the wings. Then I either woke up or it just went to the next part of the dream without doing anything special. Me and some people were sitting in a plane. I swear Sirius Black and Jotaro from JoJo were there, but I don't know why. I guess it was more of a jet than it was because it was small. We were going somewhere, but I suppose we were on the run from something, and I don't remember what else, but we were not super small this time. We were flying the plane in shifts because I knew how to fly the plane in the dream. We had to land even though we were really, really not wanting to, but something bad was on the ground. So we land and we're beside this compound, and we end up going inside. Inside were jungle gyms and fields with winding paths and towers. We walk into one of the fields, and this game starts where we have to keep to the paths, and in between the paths are circles of green grass. If you jump onto the circles of grass, you have to use this keyboard to step on to spell a word, and that's the only way that you're allowed to go to the safe zone. If you fuck up, you die by explosion or gunshot, and I guess the last person dies. There's already a bunch of other people there, so a lot of people were participating, but I can't remember how many. It gets really confusing from that point because I think our group all got to the safe zone, and me and Jotaro and someone else escaped from there while no one was looking. All we did was wander around and see where the other games were. There were other games like one where it was dodgeball but with a football and you couldn't get hit on your back specifically or something bad would happen. There was another where you had to go up and down this roller coaster type path, but it was one that you had to climb. I don't remember why. We somehow end up talking to Dr. Habit. So there's a game called Smile for Me, I think that's what it's called, where there was this evil dentist guy who ends up being like misunderstood or whatever, and you wander around making people happy and then you talk to him to like escape. We were like, hey, one more Scrabble game deathmatch, and if our team wins, you let us go, and we do that. And then someone else that's with us that isn't on our team but someone who wants to burn the place down is also helping us and we win. He says that he's gonna stay because it's time to finally burn it down. So I guess he's gonna do that. Instead of staying to defeat the evil death game, we just up and leave on the jet again with all our team intact because there's something more important. And I specifically in this recap say, and Jotaro was no fucking help, I swear, lol. I was doing all the talking and he was just there. I guess his job was looking intimidating behind me and doing fuck all, because I don't know why he otherwise would want to even go there to talk to the evil guy because he was useless. I was really angry. 1st December 2020, alien takeover. We're getting somewhere. Apparently, in this world of the dream, it's slightly high tech. At some point, you become possessed by an alien or something and your soul is sucked out. It's treated as the soul and consciousness being two different things, and the alien has watched you so they can just act like you so you don't even know that you're not in control of your body anymore. You're thinking of an action to perform and the alien knows that you would do it, so it does it, and you don't know that it's someone else controlling you, predicting your movements instead of you actually consciously making that decision. Over time, like years, the alien will start acting differently every now and then, and starting to do more evil or weird things when you're alone, and you think that you're going crazy or you're making these weird decisions and can't figure out why, because it's so gradual that even you start just thinking that you want to make these decisions yourself automatically at some point. The alien will then go off into the wilderness to live alone or move somewhere else to isolate you, and I don't know what it did afterwards, but these people don't come back. So now I completely skipped 2021. I think I just wasn't recording any dreams at the time. So we go to the 22nd of March 2022 with the title of Beach. I'm a girl in school at night because we're putting on a play, and I turned the corner to walk into the prop closet, and I'm suddenly on the beach in the afternoon as if it was a teleportation through the closet. There's some other people that I can see in the distance and some structures, but I don't know what they are. So I talked to this guy, and he says that he walked into what sounds like, to me, a weird pocket dimension, and it just kind of works like the back rooms where you fall into it, but it's very, very rare. He's been there for so long that he doesn't even know how long. Other people have also been there much longer. They don't really need to eat or sleep as much anymore, but there's some fruit and herbs and stuff growing, and they make small lean-tos and huts and keep themselves occupied. I think something comes out every so often to attack or take someone. Or maybe people just get paranoid and insane every night. It's always evening, so people are keeping track of the time manually, and there's no actual day or night, but they still refer to it anyway. And these people have to watch out during these night periods. The person stays for a while and there's a baby. I don't know how. I'm not sure if it's ours or someone else had a baby. I don't know how, since they never age, or how did the baby age into an infant instead of never even growing in the first place, but it happened. Then, because of this, I leave by stumbling out of it the same way that I stumbled in. And I also took the baby with me. I'm also back in the school auditorium, so I run away and decide that I can't cope with normal life after knowing about this, so I go off to live by myself. And I'm not actually attending school, so I might have been an adult teacher instead of a student, but for some reason I had another impression of it before. The guy manages to leave, but as he's turning the corner one day years later, he finds himself back onto the beach again. He manages to walk out as quickly as he came somehow, but because of this, he's incredibly paranoid that he's going to walk back onto the beach one day on the future and not be able to leave, so he starts breaking down. We then go to September the 6th, 2020, and there is no title for this one. There's the back rooms, and a demon appears to try and convince you to join the demon. There's also strange cryptid doors that you have to learn to avoid, like SCP. Some of them you can identify by a hum coming from them. You need to actually find ways through to get out, and it's revealed that the demons were actually angels making a test, and if someone tried to sell their souls to the demons to leave and take the easy way out, they wouldn't actually be doing that, but they would be failing the test, and the angels would reveal themselves, because this is actually the afterlife and it's a way to get to the next destination. At one point, I came across a bunch of dark and depressed, oily looking people who stayed at the back rooms for so long that they were in moldy and forgotten corridors and ended up feeling like they were giving up. They told me that a lot of the doors seemed safe, but the doors' true natures would be hidden, so I would have to be more careful, and they seemed kind of happy at the idea that I could possibly fail. I opened a door but didn't want to go in for some reason, and then I heard the hum and felt that something was shifting in the dark in the open doorway, so I closed the door quickly. I don't know how I figured it out, but none of the doors were the right door. It was actually a secret hallway behind a curtain that kind of felt like it was just pushing through curtains for ages and ages, as if they were all curtains like stacked on top of each other, and I was just continuously pushing through them until I came out into a new level. There was also a rumor that you had to do a selfless act of saving someone else for something to truly find a way to get to the final destination. Somehow, me and some weird person that could fire breathe, but it hurt him a lot to do so, ended up saving each other, so we were like, fuck it, let's go. And we went to the final place. The final place was a nice, peaceful place where an angel, previously pretending to be a demon, tried to explain what was happening to me, but I said audibly, "Skip dialogue, please," and then I woke up. We then jumped to March 30th, 2023, but it just says, "I don't know, man." My dream started with me being with a group of who went on a ghost tour, but it was supposed to just be us, and some ghost hunters showed up, and they were telling us that there were some really scary ghosts in this one warehouse. When they led us down there, there was a big convention area with lots of people and booths, and it was for the paranormal. So we leave after exploring, and there's a massively long journey home that reminds me of a JRPG. There were different sections like a forest, a mountain meadow, and a really dark, creepy canopy area, which led inside to this gross-looking food court where everything was bigger. Like, the canopy path were all these thick branches, as if we were far above a forest, and all traveling on these tree trunks with damp moss all over them. And then descending from one of the branches was a place that was like a meadow on the side of a cliff, and we followed that to go directly into the food court. We didn't want to touch the food because people seemed weird and we didn't trust the food. So we managed to sneak into the back, and they had already had a skin suit prototype prepared for one of us to swap us if we ate the food. Then the intercom started going off and a voice was telling us that we couldn't escape. So we run down the kitchen hallway and end up in these backroom type things, but as subway tunnels. And then we ended up in a hotel lobby where we were trying to climb down to access the path to the exit because it was a trippy pathway and there was a single hotel employee walking after us like It Follows, and eventually we made it out. 30th of April 2023, Imbibing Castle. That's the title of this. I'm almost finished high school, but I go into university straight away. Because I've just moved to this academy where people in their senior year complete it and then go directly into university, but it's like this old castle type architecture like in a fancy classic university campus in Britain. But the stuff in there is also aesthetically the same. Like besides the modern computers and pens, everything else, including the chairs, looks like that aesthetic. There's this friend group I'm with where they have this club. I don't actually remember what they do. They're not cheerleaders, but they have the same vibe of a group that runs something at the campus. Maybe it's drama or a campus newspaper. For some reason, they really want me in the group because I guess we clicked as friends, so I say okay. Then, during a break after a night class finishes, I go join them because they told me I should join them in the night imbibing, and I'm like, what? So they explain that there's this courtyard that has been out of bounds and sealed off for as long as they can remember, and they actually have found a way in. They say they go in there about one by one and sing during the night once a week because it makes them feel relaxed and they think it's like a cool club activity, so they want me to go and try it. It's pitch black in the Forbidden Mirror courtyard because the courtyard is kind of like underground and the top is covered, so there's no night sky coming in. But I sing a bit and there's this weird thing where my voice doesn't really echo back like it should. But the other girls come running in because they accidentally mistimed the outing and there's a teacher coming to see what the noise is, so we run to hide in the courtyard. One of the girls reveals that she had a key with her, and then when she came here alone, she first found this place and kept the key to herself because she didn't really know what to do with it, but felt like it was neat. While we're trying to hide in the courtyard, she finds a door that the key fits into, and we go in. After some stairs and a hallway that mimics a dusty old version of the university, we find the remains of another old castle, and the deeper we go in, there's signs that people either died there or had to leave in a hurry. But then we see a bed in the distance and there's a musty old figure in the bed. I remember going to talk to them because I'm fucking stupid, and then I woke up. The 2nd of May 2023, this is called King Eats Human Skin. A woman who is injured shows up on a water bus to this kingdom. She escaped from some shit-ass place, so she needs somewhere to stay. She goes to the king and his wife and son. They look at her wound and asked her about it, and she says that it'll heal, but she needs to take the dead skin off as it heals. They're suddenly like, you should come work for us in the castle and we'll heal you and give you a place to stay and a job and stay safe, in a really suspicious way, and she's like, huh? Okay. Eventually, when the skin comes off, they straight up take it. The physician keeps taking more and more skin and says that it's because of healing, but the woman gets suspicious and says that that's too much skin. So she sneaks out of her room and sees the royal eating tiny bits of skin like crackheads. I have an interesting way of typing when I'm half asleep. She somehow escapes and then goes to another kingdom and tells them about it. Somehow it goes to the royal family being expunged and a new one put in place because of the skin controversy. Then the wife starts eating skin in the new kingdom family, and the rest of the family is like, where'd you get that skin? What the fuck? And they find a secret chamber beside the dungeons that was used to store what look like massive bunches of meat and skin, kind of like when you get pig skin in a hot pot. I guess it's addictive because somehow everyone who discovers the chamber and when they rule the kingdom addicted to it. The 10th of May 2023, the next one is called Dwarf and Zoo. I'm at my grandma's house and something is wrong, so I need to get her out of the house. I don't know why, but it's like a property I can't just walk away from. It's like I'm stuck in this pocket dimension until I find a way to leave. For some reason, on the grass outside, I see a baby stroller slowly being pushed by the wind. The house is actually empty right now because the relatives are outside. Somehow I find these dwarves, but I'm not much bigger than them. They show me a tunnel by the house entrance, like built into a rock face. So after a bit of hesitation and chatting, I crawl in with them. I go to their world, which looks like a nice city designed a bit like a college campus. I think at one point I meet someone who whispers, "Get out," as if the world is off. My parents are there for some reason, and there's this other group trying to get out of the dimension. I end up saying something like, "I'll work for you for the rest of my life as payment or whatever you need just to get my family out of there." I woke up for a bit because the next part is me at the zoo with some people. We're doing a tour through the zoo, and the animals near us freak out at the guy at the back of our group, but no one else seems to notice, and I don't know why the animals don't like him. And that's all there is to say about that. 12th of May 2023, City Ship. I had a dream about a massive, grand ship that was so big it had a city of 120,000 people living inside it. And they were all in it because they had abandoned civilization and considered the apocalypse already happened to society, so they started their own. During the night, this god looked up and saw this massive wave approaching that was like a massive skyscraper, but the dream ended before it hit, but there was a sense of doom when I woke up. June 10th, 2023. Killer Queen but a mole. For some reason, I was in a giant amusement park and I worked there with other people because we're living in a house on the hill above it. We discovered this science space in the hill, but it's all old and shit. We have a peek at the past, and the scientist in there went insane and actually did something. He was convinced that if he had a rape baby with the female that was captive in there, he could kill her and feed the flesh to his baby, and it would eventually grow to be magic and would be able to destroy both the Earth and get on a ship to create a galaxy-destroying wormhole with the child. In our timeline, he dies instead, and this didn't happen. It seems that one of the random people staying with me is evil because they start trying to kill us by highlighting things around us and exploding them like a game. They're also taken over by the science lab and know how to use it. So we run and the person sends demons after us. Another one for the tally. And the humanoid that works for the mall lets us in his secret wall den house in the tech department, and the door merges to the wall so it's invisible, and then we just hide in there, and I woke up. 15th of July 2023, JRPG anime horror. Me and other people I know are at a party, and I hear someone say to someone I know, "We don't like that you disrespected our god, Saffron." So me and two other people end up going up the stairs and carrying this big mint leaf to the 3rd floor, where we're supposed to give it as an apology offering to Saffron. I find some actual saffron at the base of the 3rd floor stairs, and we find this weird electronic tablet or something like, and one of the other two people that I'm with starts looking through it. She finds this Flash Player app and sees 7 files. I forgot the names, but some of them weren't in English. She clicks on the first one and there's a warning that comes up that says, "What you're about to see is a very special image played to music," and some other text. I get a horrifying feeling, and I don't know if I'm half lucid dreaming, but I distinctively remember making the decision to turn around before it plays so I can't see it because I really don't want to see it. So for the next few minutes, I'm facing the wall and listening to various levels of music, like organ music, going to creepy music, while the two people watching make some weird comments that I don't understand about the supposed moving images displayed. I have an incredibly bad feeling for them, but for some reason I didn't tell them that I wasn't going to watch it. I just turned around silently while they were playing it. They only watch one part and we go downstairs, but then during the later part of the night they're talking about it and I feel really bad, as if something bad is going to happen concerning the rest of the videos. I have no idea what that has to do with the title. 30th of August 2023, Sandman Dream. We're stuck in this weird dreamscape where we have to keep running through liminal spaces to get out, but there's this creature that's basically the Hat Man, where if he catches you, he freezes you, and then I don't know what happens. So we're on this plane, and the plane is touching down, and for some reason this means that we're getting out of the dream. But as we're getting out, we go into our real houses, but the Hat Man is still walking around. And there's some beach thing that I don't understand, something about hiding in the water, and one of the other people is like, "We're still on the plane. We never left, did we?" And then I woke up. September the 1st, 2023, Screaming Chocolate. I was at the shops and heard something horrible coming from a chocolate bar, like a muffled human voice. Only some people can hear it. I don't know if we had a specific reason for being able to hear it. I knew that a person who was buying these chocolates from a local vendor knew who made them, and he would stock them in his local shop. I asked the guy if he knew about what was going on because I could see him react to the noises in those chocolate bars as if he could hear them, but he lied about it being nothing and he got aggressive. For some reason, me and my dream insert friend gang decided to plot to steal some samples of the stuff that the guy had and see what was wrong with it. We stole some, but we saw that the room with the ugly ass tree had people sunk into the soil like that one Hannibal episode with the mushrooms, and they were connected to the tree like they were sleeping. I don't know what was up with that, but somehow it was connected to the screaming chocolate, and we made a plan to destroy the tree to free the souls from the chocolate. We took photos of it for reference to get out of there before we would make a plan to come back in, but I woke up. R.I.P. chocolate people. Am I not technically a chocolate person? Maybe I'm more of like a latte. 20th September 23. Circuses and the Road to Canada. I think at the time I was really into that game Death Road to Canada, so maybe that's what was going on. I had this dream that I was in this show competing for something, and we were all in this really fancy hotel. Someone had to die to progress like Danganronpa, so I killed someone somehow by making them fall out of the window when they snuck into my room. But nothing happened when I got caught, so it wasn't actually like Danganronpa. Somehow it transitions to this weird circus core type world where they're encouraging people to eat and drink these things that slowly take away your need to do bodily human things, but it will also make you super docile and tired. They needed sleepy humans for something or another. I find my real life friend there, so I drag him away from the circus and we get out of there and start walking across this deserted city that looks like our world just suddenly got raptured and absolutely everyone is gone except for the circus core section that we left behind. Our eyes are already kind of fucked up, so we keep having to rub them with water in order to take away the hallucinations of random circus stuff that keeps popping up over the landscape. And then it just ends there. 31st of October 23. Whale story. There was this girl who for some reason could breathe underwater, and she ended up being locked in this underwater palace in an attempt to drown her. So she swam through this cave and found this hallway buried underwater at the bottom of the ocean. There was no water in there, or she could breathe in the water there for some reason. There were these giant whales swimming around, but like Brillo whales from that one thing that I keep forgetting the name of, but I really, really liked it. That I'll put it on the screen, but it's really good. You should check it out. They were a bit different to reflect their personalities outwardly, as if they were like customized. The girl found a way to drain the hole of water, and the whales turned into these big, tall humanoid types. They were gods of some sort, and they explained that they were trapped down there, and she set about basically living there with them and trying to get revenge by freeing them so that they could escape the hole and take revenge on people. This one just says October 23, but I don't know the date, so there's this expedition that finds a house in the middle of the ocean. I think it was above the waves, but they look out of the window and see all of space instead of just seeing the ocean from inside the house. For some reason, I distinctly remember one of the people saying, "This is some old tomorrow's type thing," and my person that I was in the dream laughed. There's something that radiates threatening energy in the sky, and it's coming closer. The crew that I'm with look out the window, and the window seems to just zoom in on the eyes of the thing that turns to look right at them, and the thing starts to come directly at them. Then the Earth becomes really fucked up like 1984, and it's brightly colored, and the aliens are doing something or another. The gifted and most kiss-ass person in the school, that there's a school, gets prepped for becoming one of the staff when they make the kid shoot an insubordinate as an initiation. I was the kiss-ass in the dream, and the teacher had taken me to target practice for the first time, and I was secretly wanting to start a rebellion, so I was only pretending to be retarded. So then it abandons this plotline and goes to this massive ship that looks like a mini planet. Apparently, after the world had been fucked up, the population of humans who didn't want that kind of society had escaped and formed their own planet ship. So the ship was weird like a space society, and they were searching for another planet. The me that was living in that part of the dream is really anxious and calms herself down and goes up the stairs to this announcement booth because she's the person that announces things on the entire planet ship. She says people should start cleaning up a bit because they're only at 71% water production efficiency, whatever the fuck that means. That's what I actually wrote, whatever the fuck that means. Then she goes by this old person who bought and manages the lower parts of the planet ship, and she doesn't like him for some reason. I don't know what's going on because there's a lot of hallways, but I woke up. We then get to the 14th of December 2023, Time Loop in the Kindergarten. I actually adapted this one into a short story in a little short story collection that I made based on dreams. I started working in a childcare place, and I start moving desks around where some are in groups and others are in lines, and when the children come in, I just make sure that they can find a place to play. All the children come when it starts raining, so it's really dark outside, and I make laminates of all of the children's names so I can have them choose their desks and put the names on them. A child named Paige keeps being a little shit, so I say, "Well, Paige, if you keep doing that, everyone won't get their rewards." I didn't mean it though, I was just trying to scare her. There's this mentor teacher and another teacher's assistant who had been there longer than me. I was talking to them in between all of this. The assistant was looking out the window and she didn't say anything important. As the children are collecting their names and going to find places to make their desks, I notice it's dark outside and I can't even see across the street anymore. The power in the building starts going out and the three little shits, including Paige, run out of the building because they think it's funny. So me and the other assistant run after them, and the assistant is faster than me, so she goes as fast as she can, but the fence behind the school is like a maze for some reason and she can't go through it. I'm hanging back calling the cops, but even the phone that picks up is just an echo of what I'm saying on the other end. The two boys that Paige is with don't come back at all. And I get this weird video on my phone, like Paige's mum's number is in my phone and sending me a video message. But when I click on it, it's Paige herself crying and glitching and rapidly getting older very fast in a location that I can't understand. Then the assistant and I run back to the building to see the rest of the kids are scared, so we get distracted just looking after them. I can't remember how, but I tried going through the fence area and then started getting the age glitching thing happening to me. I managed to get into the shed of the school, but I looked at the school window and saw me and the assistant and the mentor doing the desk stuff before, and I was the one that the assistant was looking at out of the window. And then I woke up. What the fuck? March 29th, 2024. We just jumped to 2024. We're almost done, I promise. Astronaut wearing a skin suit. An astronaut was sitting in a shitty tiny hovercraft for some reason, like going to a planet, and the others stayed behind on the ship as if the astronaut was doing an away mission in a smaller vessel. The people on the actual ship were forced to land, and when they're not supposed to, so the crew go and follow the astronaut to meet them, even though it's been a bit of time since the astronaut has been on the planet himself. So the lady who's close to the astronaut is watching his legs as he walks across some tree roots, and his legs are made out of VHS ribbons in the sense that they're trailing out from under his pant legs, so there's a gap in his astronaut suit where these are coming out, but no one else can see it because she has special sight that makes anomalies and possession look like VHS ribbons. So they go back to the ship as he's walking towards her, and she's like, "You're not really John, are you?" And then it shows a zoom in of his skin being emptied but staying upright and intact somehow, and his mouth says correct, and then I wake up. April 1st, 2024, Skin Friend. This is another one that I turned into a story. I was in a cheap looking TAFE. TAFE is college. I think I explained that. There, I was in a cheap looking college area, and they had a pool, but it was indoors, so I was going around with a friend, and we learned about this weird demon monster that was supposedly hanging around. It was like an urban legend. We actually saw the demon at one point, but I can't remember what we did about it. There was a really rude girl who was trying to bump into us when we were walking, but we told her to fuck off, and the teacher of our class told her to fuck off too. Eventually, we were walking up a hill and the demon was there. It had no skin and it was just a muscle skeleton with gore. I just befriended it because it was actually really nice, and my friend and I linked arms with it so we could go home together and watch a movie, and everything was cool. 5th of April 2024, Hotel Vampire Trap. I was fleeing my grandpa, who was trying to escape the house after going mental or something. He was like throwing razor blades as throwing cards at me. I drove a lot and ended up at a casino, and I wanted to book a night there. So I waited in the lobby for my friend, who called to help me and stay with me for the night. She arrives and we get complimentary drinks once we book our room. The drink makes you kinda loose, so we went to the casino and put $150 on a card, and I met the shy guy who was wandering around. I eventually ended up suddenly killing him by biting his neck, because the drink had turned my friend and I into weird vampires. The hotel trapped people in it by making them into monsters by drinking the free alcohol, and we couldn't leave because the outside would kill us. Only we were reverse vampires because there were these lights everywhere at night, and if we didn't have them at night, we would die. There's this one guy who looks like Mashita from Deathmar, and he's a recovering alcoholic, so he didn't actually drink his free drink, and he's been staying around to figure out what was happening, and he wants to help us. 13th of April 2024, Skinwalker Schoolgirl. A man is driving along the road and he sees a person asking for help. It's a woman and she wants to get out of the wilderness, but she's actually a skinwalker, so she eats him and takes his gear. She then goes back to her husband's house, and the gang of people decides that they want to go after the skinwalker because they figure out it's a skinwalker. In the end, they use fire and some parts of ancient magic to kill her, but part of her gets trapped in this young student who has to grapple with the villain in her like it's a manga. The 14th of April 2024, God, FBI, and Endless something. It just says Endless. I am in a room where someone keeps morphing in appearance and speaking to me. They say that their name was Loki, aka like the god, you know. At one point it was a man, and then it was a woman, and then it was another thing, but they were talking to me about life, like how I feel about my career path and the fact that I don't know what direction I'm going in and why. And I have this thing beaten into my head of you have to be realistic, which means that I don't actually feel like I can be successful, and it's more of a dream that will never happen. And this is like anxiety that I have in real life, so I guess in the dream it was just coming out and I was explaining it to whoever I was talking to. After that, I started getting calls from this group that acted like the feds, but they weren't directly the feds, they just acted like them. They basically told me that they needed to experiment on me for some reason, but they didn't explain, and I was like, huh? And they were gonna come to my room, so I hid up this comically large vent. In the last part of the dream, I left my class, and my brain was muddled about my career. I kept trying to find the one car park zone that my dad was gonna get me from because I needed a lift to visit family, but it kept going, like the car park, and it kept going and stretching, and I couldn't get out. One of these frat house groups was there, and there was a bus stop on the sidewalk for them. One of the houses was this monument to Hecate with all of these witches standing outside of it. Another was this place where there was a steep looking incline, and you could see the urban area which could have been impossible from outside of the college, but it was like you could just zoom in and look at it. Then I went back inside the college and I asked this girl if I could go to the same direction as her to admin so I could get the fuck out of there, and I needed to follow her to admin because I didn't know how to go to it. I went around the corner when I arrived to this area and she walked straight to a different section, and this guy showed up and turned her into dust to take her to some in-between land because her friend had this plot to keep them together instead of growing up and getting jobs. But I didn't care, so I just kept walking. There were even people cheering on this one super long bus in the parking lot, like Snaky Bus, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna leave. And there was another part where there was this sheer cliff drop into mist, and something in the mist was like out of the game Elden Ring. I was trying to call my dad and I woke up. The 15th of April, we have Harry Potter and soup. I'm trying to give a pep talk to some students who are confused about their quiz. We're in some dorms that look like Hogwarts, but somewhat modernized. I was in the kitchen making soup, and no one else knows how to make the soup, so I'm teaching people how I'm making the soup. The main part of the dream was that Harry got kidnapped by Voldemort and got taken to his castle where he was gonna be trapped before Voldemort challenged him to a fight, and he had to train in the castle for a fight. Like, it was that one posh Jojo. I don't know why this happened or why they were doing that for a year, but I guess Voldemort was trying to be fair or something. Harry woke up in a bedroom, so I guess he had somewhere to sleep, and Voldemort was just kind of lurking around. Like, they had more of a business proposal during during the year, and then they would go back to being enemies. 21st of April 2024, Vinny and a hotel disease. I was frustrated by something and decided to cook. I had a hotel room that was kind of shabby. For some reason, Vinny from Vinesauce came through the screen and helped me get over the demon monsters at night. Then he just left. I guess I fell asleep listening to one of his VODs. Me and a group of teens were gonna see a movie, which makes one of us fall asleep. We leave our mess and run away from the cleaner. The airport is infected with a disease that fucks you up depending on your blood type. And that's all I had to say about that. 22nd of April 2024, classroom and distorted faces. I was traveling in a group going to this campus, and the campus was so big you had to camp while you were moving around it. At first, my friend was talking to a ghost who turned out to be a real baby and brought her back to her mum who was living in low-income housing in a shipping container. We went along until I saw a guy I knew and I asked him about which feminist authors he was reading. I asked if he liked Sylvia Plath, who I thought was more tolerable than most of the other feminists, and he said no, and the class itself was run by Joyce Carol Oates. I don't think that she's specifically a feminist literary author. I think she's just a normal author, right? I went with him, and the lecture was by some bitch who was named Carol Oates, but wasn't the actual author. It was just someone named her, and it was about how pretty girls are against the revolution, so they can't be a part of the good guy team and has to be killed. So then I'm just sitting there as a guest at the lecture. Carol Oates singles me out and blames me that her speaker in the classroom is blasting 2010s music because her speaker is broken, and it being broken means that it specifically only blasts 2010s music and you can't turn it off. I told her, okay, bitch, I'm leaving. I give her the finger. On the way out, there's this confused guy named Brian wandering around, and I collect him. This is like the political activist annoying base of the campus, and we're chased by police on the way out, but we make it to my house. It's an old house, and I helped cook the food with the guy, and the paranormal investigation team I knew came over because my door was haunted. The frosted glass kept showing figures that would be like alternate faces from the Mandela catalog. We took pictures of each other and made the YouTuber noises like, "Oh gee whoa guys, there's a ghost," even though there wasn't a video being recorded. I was looking for evidence of what the ghost was on YouTube, and I watched a video that a guy said that manifestation is true because he summoned flies to populate his house and now he regrets it. Okay, April 23rd, 2024, cake making and death. I was walking to the mall with a friend and we tried to go get something to eat, but it was all super sweet stuff everywhere and we didn't want that. So I go back to this hotel area I'm staying at with a bunch of people and I make a cake for a birthday. It's a hot cake with a fist bursting out of it like a punk band album. I go to the door and there's these cats around, but I don't know what's happening in the area. I'm just sitting there with my family and I'm making cookies and talking about how wacky my uncle is. 24th of April 2024, small people hiding in the town. There is this old-fashioned place that looks like a Harvard-style architecture, and everyone has to rush to the courtyard because the rest of the inside of the building were growing hostile random gears and I didn't actually see it, so I don't know, but I was staying in the courtyard because it was apparently dangerous inside. We got stuck in the courtyard because the gates were closed, and I told the leader I knew plant identification so I could stop the retards from eating bad plants when they got hungry in the future. And she was like, cool. So we all form into groups and sit around, but the building starts growing weird little extra bits. So some people go explore, and I vividly remember thinking, why is celebrity name in the campus in my dream, but I can't remember who it is. And it was some tall person that people were talking to. It's like I recognized them as the old singer that my dad likes, but now I'm awake and I have no idea who it was. So I woke up and then I went to sleep and I had a different dream. There's all these Hogwarts houses and cities in this type of Victorian style, but there's modern technology. There's giant people like Titan size, but they're just normal and not monster looking. But they're living around and in cities like this with tiny stuff. So there's secret areas where tiny people live so the big ones don't see them. And a colony that even has a giant fake hand so that they can pretend to be a big person. There's this newscaster in the city who is fused with the building. So there's this big city skyscraper, but the dude is fused with it so that his waist upwards is sticking out of the top. And he has a newscaster desk there, and his entire job is a newsman, and his existence is a newsman. The small people have a corresponding news tower where they have a green screen they can disguise as a big person. They get asked to wave a hand off the top of their news tower, so that's what the fake hand is for. At one point, this girl who's like maybe 17 has a falling out with her roommate. When the colony leaves to migrate, she stays behind and goes around the empty castle herself. There's this giant who watches her and one day puts an eye up to the door to see her, and they knew the girl's dad in the before the small people had to go into hiding. It changes to something where tiny people are running around getting stuff and then going up ladders to flying vehicles or teleportation tunnels that form a safe zone. They're collecting supplies in cities that got overrun. I don't know what that means. I see a few people as I pass, and they're tied up like they're found to be traitors for some faction, and they're going to get executed by being left outside of the safe zone. 25th of April 2024, crab chasing me. I was on the beach like something from Mario where there were crystal clear water and tiny islands with different beaches I could swim to. There were crabs that were rainbow colored and some were square crabs and others carried knives. They chased me around when I got near them, but I was trying to go around collecting and completing recipes. I was Wybie from the Coraline movie at first, and then I left this grassy area and went directly to the beach area, and I got upgraded to being the real me in my dream. There were also caves that transported me to other beach levels that were more of the same thing where I could get other ingredients for the recipes. From that point, I went to an area that had a roller coaster to ride and find ingredients. I had to do it like some of the air sections in the carnival from Kirby. It says Kirby FL, which means Forgotten Land, not Florida. I had an apple pie, a hazelnut pie, some rice pudding, pancakes, and a berry, specifically. The 27th of April 2024, killer in the house. It started with something I experienced in another dream where I had to wait in a car park until late at night to get home. I got home, not in my house in real life, and I was typing someone's name in chat while they were watching a video. I was watching them make fun of stuff while I was waiting for a bad person to sneak into my house so I could shoot them. I shot them in the ear and then in the face, and they lay on the floor, but I went to the back door to get something, and then when I came back, they had gotten up again somehow. I ran out of the house because my gun had no more bullets. Some hunter team trapped him in a duel and dropped him from a helicopter in the Congo. 30th of April, racist killer on the train. I was sitting around with this group of people on this group outing. I was another person. I got stuck in a bunker with this mad guy who was obsessed with babies, and we needed to constantly do office work to make more babies grow for him. I don't know how this correlates. I managed to sneak in a Kirby poster that I had with me. I don't know. There was this French girl who was confused and not doing things by the rules, so I was trying to do stuff for her before the guy noticed so nothing bad happened to her. I can't remember what happened next, but the guy was dead by shenanigans involving me, but I don't know what. We left the place. I remember I was explaining that Kirby is a symbol to the people of rebellion to the other people, so I guess I actually killed the guy with Kirby somehow. Then we were going to the city to get to the train station to go home. I bought some croissants. This is like specifically just a completely new sentence. I bought some croissants. And we were passing through the gates where you have to come up to the door and then had to step onto a plastic pad that looked like a big treadmill step, and then you could hit a button that opened the correct gate ahead. So I did that. I was going back and forth to help people by doing this, and this one guy named Kay or some was talking to me. He was kind of like a Jesse Pinkman looking guy, but not actually shifty, just really try hard. He was passing through the gate to get to the train when I heard a big noise and ran to the gate to see him covered in blood, some guy stabbed, and another guy bruised up. This one massive guy had gotten angry and attacked. I'll just call him Jesse because he looked like that guy from the show. We had to think of a way to get rid of the bad dude. For some reason, I almost calmed him down, and then Jesse fucking insulted him, so he killed Jesse. He left the train and threw his bag at us like it was a bomb, and we all ran into the station to get the next train, and all the police. It says all the police, so I'm assuming every single policeman in the world. The police got him and somehow towed the train away and said the bag wasn't a bomb but had some suspicious things in it. We boarded another train where we helped the idiot guy, I don't know who that is, the French girl and another guy wounded on it. But when the train was moving, the French girl disappeared after giving me a cute cat lunchbox. The leader of the group just couldn't find her. The grunts from Halo, I don't know who this is referring to specifically, invaded the Earth in a giant spaceship and looked like it was made out of red crepe paper. I was in this floating island where there was this puddle of purple goo like Dragon Quest poison, next to a hill with a broken wire fence. This fat person was so fat that they kind of melted into a puddle, and their stomach was the bridge to get over the pile. Some people just walked on it while the doctor showed up and looked very... Who is the doctor? That's all there is. There's no other explanation. Why is this called Racist Killer on the Train? May 2nd, 2024. Haunted Tape. This tape was about new features to update your therapist, like your therapist is a robot, and it basically gives a list of things that they can now paint, make food, eat food, and some announcement that the thing was now cursed and would kill you, just at the end of the video. The lady on the TV just waved a gun around and said that we can't undo it because it was from the McNulty Corporation or whatever, and it's cursed because of that reason, and I'm like, oh, that place, that makes total sense in my dream. 9th of May 2024. 2 old boys and an old lady. For some reason, I'm a boy in this dream. It starts with me going to this long trek with another boy, and I don't know why we were going, but we were very determined to. The first thing that we encounter in this is this weird lady who sort of follows us and is like, "What do you have against me?" As if we did something to her, mistaking us for someone else that she knows that did something bad to her, but we have never spoken to her before, and we just keep walking and ignore her. There's a road, but then we cross into a farmland path and go into a forest. Eventually, we turn up at this house, and she's coming after us, so we run into the house and hide, and then she comes in and we lock her inside and leave. Afterwards, we're walking through the streets of what looks like a small town, but then turns into a big area that's populated like a tourist area. But the lady starts following us again. So we go to this one path and we end up split up, but we had phones. So I go down the street and hide in this hammock in this park area, and it's next to a shopping district. There's a shallow lake between the district and where I am. On the other side, I can see this woman standing by the bus stop on the other street waiting for us. So I text the other person to come meet me by the water so we can cross over to the lake and to the airport that is across the shopping district. So we go all the way through the mall to the airport, and for some reason the old lady cursed us to look like rats to the people on the plane, but we knew about this and took over the appearances of 2 people who were gonna be on the flight and didn't show up, so we pretended to be them. And then we're on the plane and we find good seats, and we have to make sure we're not using unstable disguises during the flight. We then leave the flight and end up walking across the city with this group to find the next airport in the really big incline city that we have to trek through. So we go to the airport for one last run back to our home. I woke up and I just realized that I don't know what happened to the rat thing. The 13th of May 2024, the Talisman and Kirby. I was in this place that looked like a mix of Diagon Alley and a modern town with a hotel. The people there were there to see a rock star. There were lots of people going in and getting rooms at the inn, but there was an extension of the inn built into it, and I was staying at that part with some family members. I found out the shopping street had shops that had quite a lot of Kirby merchandise, so I decided to go looking at them. Then there was this hotel kind of growing around the town, like you know how you get those fake outdoor displays with fake windows and streetlights. I kept finding myself going around and seeing these people do odd tasks when it seems other people can't see them or ignore them. I eventually, through meeting these people, was asked to take food up to this very aggressive dog that kind of fused with the door and the room that he was staying in. The hallway looks like the leaky cauldron from the 3rd Harry Potter movie. So I get to the dog and it turns into more of a normal looking dog once I give it the food. It gives me explanation about how there was a talisman that was created with an elastic core because it was supposed to be able to adapt to the changing magic of the world to keep the world stable, but this king forced it to become rigid for some reason by forcing 3 sets of magic coins to the surface to lock its power down. The talisman exploded and the cursed area, which we were currently in, became all fucked up. And they asked me if I would like to go on a quest to help restore the talisman and free them. And then I said no because I wanted to keep browsing the Kirby merchandise and had other things to do, so I left. The stream is either sponsored by Nintendo or Nintendo is going to come in and shoot me in the skull because I dared to have a dream about their intellectual property. 27th of May 2024, The Doubles and the Other World. There were doubles of people that show up to children and try to brainwash them into thinking isekai things like, my parents aren't my real parents, this person that appeared to me is my real dad and I should go to their world. Kind of like the other mother from Coraline, but the other worlds are genuinely pretty big and pretty substantial, unlike in Coraline. The person I'm following at the start of the dream is being called by the other parent in a car while they walk home, and the real parents have caught on, so they tell the kid to hide when he sees a weird car so that he doesn't go with that person. The kid makes it home properly, but the brother, who's older and has his own car, seems to have become a victim of it, and they put some weird soul sand in his face to make him actually believe the other world is his real home, so he lets the other people bring more of the sand to try and get the other kid to bring him home too. The real dad steps in and inhales some of it. He and the kid get hit so they can get taken to the other world, isekai style, and the dad thinks that he's the kid's brother or something because he gets confused. They both snap out of it for a while because they didn't take enough of the sand to fully be brainwashed, and they go and try to find out how to get out. I woke up before anything exciting happened. I promise we're almost at the end. I didn't know that this was like multiple hours worth of dream recordings. 30th of May 2024, infected space crew. I'm sorry, I've been recording for so long. I was in this holiday home that's super low budget, and for some reason we sit in the garage with the garage open like a place to hang out in the summer with some tables and chairs. These stupid neighborhood kids decide to come in so they can stand for like a basketball game or something and throw the ball out of the cul-de-sac, and we want them to leave, but they're annoying, so they don't. One day we just close the door and keep it closed so we can hear the kids outside complaining by the door and calling us to open it, but we ignore them. There's this pool in the backyard and connected to the beach, and there's this big wave carried by some mermaid lady. She's covered in gold scales and balls. She asks us if we can get her out, and I say I'm going to need a wheelbarrow for this. I'm in a group going to the supermarket that I've been to before in other dreams. This one girl is crying because she feels something growing in her stomach, and the others gather around her. Me and the 4 people who came in the same car with me get a bad feeling and decide we need to leave quietly, and everyone else stands around the girl in a trance. It cuts to some different people who are in a spaceship, and there's 4 of them in the main area, but there's supposed to be 3 in the other area of the ship, but for some reason 2 of them couldn't make it or got lost, and there's only 1 guy in there, but they can't get the intercom to work to contact him, or he can't contact them back or something. But the last thing was that one of the previous 2 said that their stomach hurt. So the crew goes to this planet that has a colony of human clones on it, which I think were basically test tube babies that were taken to a new planet to start a colony there. They were all normal and nice, and one of the 4 space guys talks to the lead person in the space that they disembark to. They're like, well, we got our guy Stan in the back there. We can't seem to talk to him. Maybe you guys can open a channel. The clones help them, but there's no response, even though the communication channels are working. So for some reason, one of the 4 guys gets this realization that there's a dead body in there all along, and the 4 want to leave to go back to the Earth, so they decide to leave. The guy that they talk to at the clone base says that his stomach hurts. And I'm the Earth operator who sees the ship coming back years later, and somehow I can tell the people inside are all infected or mutated. Like I have a hunch. So I have an ability to beam something at the ship and nuke it before it comes to the atmosphere, and I do that. We cover it up and the public just thinks the ship was lost, so the Earth is saved from whatever that was. On Clone Earth, the infected people are all bloated and weird, and they trust the government too much, so they don't do anything about it, and they're all infected, and they're just sitting around waiting for the government to fix it. 20th of June 2024, Haunted Station. I was disliked at the station. JF had artificial garden, and Ghost befriended me, but it turned against everyone and possessed me, so I killed half the people and stabbed the demon to death after it came out. Condensed shops like Slum, but we had our own units. I'm pretty sure I fell asleep while writing that. because that makes no sense. 21st of June 24. Bug Army and Will Graham. Will Graham from Hannibal. I was at my grandparents' house and the dude across the cul-de-sac started screaming. So we looked out the window and he was bitten by his crazy dog who suddenly got rabies with this symbol carved into its side. The dude got taken by an ambulance because we called the cops. We decided to go somewhere safer, so I went to my childhood home from right before we moved to Australia. Apparently some time had passed as if we just started packing, left for a month, and then came back. I was awake and I heard this scurrying coming from my room. Then I went to my sleeping parents and told them. Dad says it's probably just the cockroach that I failed to kill. You should probably block the bottom of the door with fabric. So I was hurrying to try and do that, while I hear these impish voices on the other side saying that they're insects getting revenge for something someone named Sarah did to them, and they were going to bust through the door for that. I was like, who the fuck is Sarah? And they burst through the door, but they didn't attack us because they realized that we weren't that person, so they just kind of aimlessly circled around the door. I left to go clean my hands in the bathroom, and Will Graham from Hannibal was in the kitchen. I don't know what he was doing there, but he was just hanging out, and I was really pissed off that he was there for some reason. 25th of June 24. Monster Covered House. I was trying to make an ice cream cake for my cousin, and my auntie comes in saying that she wanted to leave my uncle. We were in my grandma's house, and the TV came on, and there was some new footage coming in from another dimension. It was like a bunch of movie trailers of monsters like Silent Hill, but the monsters themselves were the buildings. There was this tall apartment building that has an air recycler and a giant monster that kind of formed around it like Kirby had eaten it, but it was a gore monster and the people were trapped inside the building. There were some people who were half monster inside, and you had to go along with their schizophrenic conversation and personality switches when they see you before they left you, otherwise they would kill you. 1st of July 24 does not have a title. I was at my grandma's house trying to get ready for something by walking around the house. I was texting my friend about this, and she was saying she can't make it because she got tickets to some other thing, and she was like, it's $300 for a ticket, and trying to dissuade me not to go with her, but I asked and she didn't respond. I was trying to walk home the next day. It was like the route that I had lived there before and I knew the way, but it wasn't corresponding to the way in real life from my real life memory, so it wasn't making sense. I reached a football field with a cricket net, and some guy and his friend asked me to give them directions so they could fuck shit up. I said I would just walk with them and pulled up Google Maps. We walked and somehow ended up in this parked cruise ship lobby, and there was some odd thing about it, so we walked down the stairs and left. We came to a weird place that reminded me of a school auditorium that opened to the steps of an outdoor Greek amphitheater, but it was some place that only people with tickets could attend, so I was like, okay, we should be sneaky. One guy disappeared and the other guy got asked for an ID. He gave them his driver's license and I was asked for mine, but someone screamed, so the guard turned to look and I ran off. I went to the exit stairwell where it was so dark and apparently a good place to hide. Everyone there was bathed in shadow, and one of them talked about how when I first got the injection, they did it to me so I wouldn't realize, and I don't know what that meant. The dude comes back after stealing his driver's license back from the guard, and we climb through the stairwell to get out of there. We never see the other guy again, and then I go home and cook beans. 11th of July 2024, Fairy Chase. I'm watching some movie that looked a bit like Hannibal while I was making tea. There was this Northern Lights type of thing outside because it was nighttime and it was right pressed up against the window, and that made me feel vertigo and anxiety for some reason. Faye broke into the house and started killing all of my housemates, and I was trying to run, but some of the blood of one of the Fae got into my mouth and I got some kind of camouflage power from ingesting it. So I escaped the house, and there's this long path of greenery lined up with the houses a couple streets away from my house, so I was heading there. My intention was to basically make it look like I ran all the way through the path, but actually would still be hiding in one of the houses instead to make the Fae go the wrong way. The birds and a ladybug actually started talking to me, but they were kind of muffled because I only ingested a little bit of Fae blood, but they were telling me that the Fae were planning to attack for a while, and I couldn't figure out why. Why were they picking this house, and who was messing with black magic or whatever? I didn't understand. One of the Fae was weirdly liking me, so they teleported me around to different biomes like snow and whatnot so I could hide, but I didn't know it was them doing that. Then a tundra location, there was a cabin I was hiding in, and they appeared to me and I was like, oh no, I'm gonna die, but then the Fae just smiled and waved and then fucked off and teleported me back to the normal world, and I woke up. 12th of July 24, Face Stealer. I knew about this urban legend that was actually true, and I went around telling everyone. And I wanted to warn them by telling them, but I think that I was accidentally making them more susceptible to become victims of it, like maybe an info hazard. And like I knew this, but for some reason I also knew that the dream me didn't know this. It was called the Limerick False Face, and it was like this long female body, super thin and completely black like a silhouette, but with a white mask on that had black features on it, like painted eyes and a mouth. It would lurk in the corners and lean over your bed or something. You'd start getting certain memories replaced with versions of those memories involving False Face in the background, but I don't know what else it did or why it did this. 29th of July 2024. Witch hangings. Basically, people were being hanged for being psychic or magic or some sort of witch hunt type thing, and there were this couple with their child who were taken to be hanged, but the girl escaped and found some crackhead and offered to clean their house if she could stay in the back room to hide. There was a team who was looking at this big ugly junk mountain that was a sentient mountain because there was a witch inside who had become corrupt and was fueling the hangings, and somehow one of the people went inside and got the witch soul to come out, and she said that she would die if she came out, but she would do it to save the world. So they were sad for her, and then the junk pile started falling apart. 30th July 2024, Butterfly Monster Trap. There was a lord in one of those big castles, and the guy was actually a monster who looked like a butterfly, like a biblically accurate butterfly monster. There were a bunch of secret rooms in the castle that he uses to trap people in cocoons for 200 years, because that's the time that it takes for him to feed off of them while they're still alive in a trance. He kind of sees it as an art project, like the guy from the house that Jack built. He's human looking, but his actual form is the biblically accurate angel butterfly. Somehow his favorite stone room got destroyed, so he had to use one of the other ones instead. The rooms were actually weird circle-shaped cement bubbles. There's another person there who learns about his secret, but he doesn't put them in the room, and they get suspicious. They see the junk tower from the last dream, and then I just stopped there, so I guess whatever else that happened wasn't interesting enough. 3rd of July 2024, Whale Beach City. I had a dream where there was a hidden beach with some cave filled with knickknacks and wind chimes that dripped rain through crystals that filled a drum. While it filled, I got chickens to feed a giant whale on the beach for payment. I drank the water and managed to breathe underwater, but it would only last until I broke the surface again, so the plan was to use the whale's vine belly to sit while she swam around the water across this hidden island for about 3 days away. On the island, there was this Victorian town with some sort of time issue, and I rescued a royal person from there who was trying to get to Antarctica to climb a ladder, and somehow that would save the world by going to the secret realm. And that's all I had to say about that. 18th of August 2024, cyber version of Utopia. A group of people were traveling in buses, and every bus had someone in charge of a gemstone mineral, like a dark mineral, not a chaos emerald. The one bus suddenly realizes that they don't want to go along with this and hides. They ditch the bus and steal some gun and bring it to a train at the station. They escape around dingy back alleys running from some organization that wants whatever they stole. One of the characters has a metal arm made of scrap, and one of them is a 48-year-old. I don't know how that's a utopia. 23rd of August 2024, Sand Apocalypse. There was some weird city. Sand started coming up from the basement of a place, and it was so fast it suffocated and crushed the people inside the building. I was just outside of it. I lived there and I didn't have my wallet on me because I was lost inside the building, so I was wandering around in my pajamas trying to understand what had happened. There was a girl I started chatting to who lived in a really tall apartment complex at the top nearby. She asked me to stay with her because she lived there alone and we could monitor the growing sand from the apartment until it came close enough and then we could leave. For some reason, a lot of people vanished after the sand started growing, so the government didn't even react or send anyone out there because I think the government was gone. So I stayed with her and I tried to research the sand, but she pretended that it wasn't there at all, even though she didn't leave the apartment block. So we stole stuff from the empty apartments. Eventually, the sand got closer and I said, "It's about time we leave now." And she's like, "Huh?" and pretended that the sand wasn't there and didn't want to leave. I told her she was in denial and I packed and left, and she got really sad, but she couldn't be helped. Then I walked around the sand to leave the city and saw this old man who was submerged, and he told me not to stand in the same spot for too long. He was totally fine with sinking because he was too tired. 27th of August 2024, the salesman demons. Mark off the tally again, boys. I got left with a hot dog stand and I was trying to make it work when this weird person came and asked to hide there. and that they would pay me, and I said yes because I didn't really care. Then these people called the salesmen walked past, and they're all kind of the same looking. They want the weird people that are hiding. One salesman talks to me, and I suddenly become involved with the whole thing, so I move the cart to where the hiding person directs me, and I meet more of them. They say that they have to collect more of these people for some reason, and I don't know why. There's infinite space inside the hot dog stand so all of the people can get in. They're all different because they're like magical people, and the salesmen want to eat them. At one point, one of the human siblings of one of them accidentally makes a noise near them, and they kidnap and eat her suddenly. I'm imagining suddenly like Mr. Frog from Smiling Friends. So the group gets very angry and decides to go to a palace in the sky to plot to kill all the salesmen because I don't know. But that's it. That is the last 2024 dream. And since I've only started in October, all of the 2025 stuff will be in the next video and I can finally stop recording. I hope at least some of these were interesting. Like, if you want to make anything out of the ideas that I have from the dream, just, I guess, credit that you got it from the dream and go ahead. Honestly, I have absolutely no idea what half of that stuff was. And I've been recording for so long, I have absolutely no idea how to end this video. So I'm just gonna leave it there.